Chapter 35. The final result of the challenge was out of everyone's expectations. Xiao Ji-shan and Xiao Ji-fei of the Ji generation were ranked 8th and 10th respectively, obtaining the qualifications to participate in the Cloud State Martial Gathering. This result made Xiao Ding very satisfied. Xiao Ding believed that in this Cloud State Martial Gathering, no matter what the results were, just the 3 young disciples of the Ji generation and one of the Xiang generation were enough to make the Xiao family proud and elated. After the top 10 were decided, Xiao Ding, the 4 guests, and the 6 elders directly led the 10 qualified disciples to the Xiao family's meeting hall. Xiao Xianghao, you're really awesome. It's only been half a year, and even I can't compare to you, haha. Xiao Ji-shan finally seized the opportunity to come to Chen Hao's side. His rough face had a touch of unconcealable envy as he said, "Senior brother, you flatter me. I was just lucky. Lucky? Why are you being modest with your senior brother? This Yuan Ling cave, you have to make good use of it." Xiao Ji-shan said, "Senior brother, what benefits does this Yuan Ling cave have?" Chen Hao couldn't help but ask. Although he already knew that entering the elemental spirit cave was something that Xiao clan disciples yearned for even in their dreams, until now, Chen Hao didn't know what kind of shocking value the elemental spirit cave had. Xiao Guan had reminded him when he obtained the qualifications, and now Xiao Ji-shan reminded him again. This made Chen Hao more and more curious. Haha, I haven't entered it yet, so I don't know much. I don't know the specific situation inside, but I still know a little. Do you know why our Xiao family didn't establish itself in the Cloud State City, but in the wilderness? It's because of the Yuan Ling cave. As Xiao Jishan spoke, Xiao Jifei, the taciturn but cold youth, Xiao Jifei, also moved closer to the two of them. This Yuan Ling cave is located in the Heavens Road Mountain, and the entrance is very hidden. When the Xiao family ancestor was chased to the peak of the Heavens Road by his enemies and fell into a desperate situation, in order to not be tortured by his enemies, the ancestor resolutely jumped into a bottomless abyss. Who would have thought that the heavens would not bar one's way? He was saved by a big tree that stretched out from the cliff, and it was a blessing in disguise, allowing him to enter the Yuan Ling cave. That's how our Xiao family came to be today. The core area of the Yuan Spirit Cave is filled with a dense amount of Yuan Qi. When a martial artist enters it, they will be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. The only drawback is that it is bone-chillingly cold. If you want to absorb the Yuan Qi within, you must first be able to withstand the cold. The longer you can withstand it, the greater your gains will be. The cold air is also extremely useful for tempering the body of a martial artist. In addition, everyone only has one chance to enter. Not bad. At this moment, Xiao Ding, who was walking in front, turned around and said, "Ji Shan is right. The longer you cultivate in there, the greater the benefits you'll obtain. But I don't want you to force yourselves. Over the years, many disciples of our Xiao clan have died in there because of their greed. So, after you enter, you must know when to stop. The reason why our Xiao clan strictly controls the number of people who can enter the Yuan Spirit Cave is not because we don't want you to improve, but because with the aptitude and temperament of an ordinary disciple, not only will there be no benefits, it will instead be harmful. This is one of the reasons. Secondly, there is a powerful restriction in the Yuan Spirit Cave. Everyone only has one chance to enter. For people like us who have entered before, we are simply unable to take half a step into the cave. Moreover, in the Yuan Spirit Cave, over the years, the cold air seems to have become stronger and stronger. If not for this, our Xiao clan would not have had a single disciple promoted to inner court disciple before the age of 20. Sigh, if only our Yuan Spirit Cave could be like the Haolian clan's Tianyuan Cave, that would be great. Uncle, what is the Haolian clan's Tianyuan Cave like? Hearing Xiao Ding's words, Xiao Jishan asked curiously. It's about the same as our Yuan spirit cave after the cold air is extracted. That is the true sacred ground for cultivation. Otherwise, the Haolian clan would not be the #1 clan in Yunzhou that no one can shake. Every time Yunzhou martial meet, they always come out on top. Humph. The Haolian clan has the Tianyuan cave and is still not satisfied. They even want to snatch our Yuan spirit cave. If not for their deliberate suppression these few years, our Shao clan would not have been so miserable in the Yunzhou martial meet. Fortunately, with the old ancestor around, they do not dare to act rashly. However, the 10 of you, pay attention. In this Yunzhou martial meet, you must be careful when you meet the Haolian clan disciples. If you are not their match, admit defeat early to avoid being heavily injured or even killed by them. The second elder Shao Gang, who looked 70% similar to Shao Jishan, was also Shao Jishan's father. His face carried a strong dissatisfaction with the Haolian clan as he spoke in a deep voice. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, everyone arrived at the Shao clan's meeting hall. Shao Ding explained in detail to Chen Hao and the others what to pay attention to after entering the Yuan Spirit Cave, as well as the time to enter the cave, and then dismissed everyone. The next day, early in the morning, the Shao clan's core members, inner court disciples, and outer court disciples, as if they had agreed, walked towards the Shao clan's back mountain, Heavenly Road Mountain. The year-end large competition had already ended, and the Shao clan's disciples had also obtained a period of freedom. Chen Hao, Lil Ling and the others walked together in the crowd. The number of people who turned their heads to look at them was not inferior to that of super beauties. The gazes that those who looked at Chen Hao were all different. Some were filled with admiration, some were filled with envy, and some were filled with pity and sympathy. However, the disdain from before no longer existed. Even if Shao Jihan's followers saw Chen Hao, they could only temporarily avoid him. No one would have thought that in just half a year's time, Chen Hao had already become someone they could not afford to offend at the peak of Heavenly Road Mountain. After half a year, even Chen Hao himself did not expect to come here again. He had already advanced to a grade 1 martial master, and had even become one of the Shao clan's outer court disciples. Looking at the huge martial arts practice field at the peak of the mountain and the 2 golden Shao characters fluttering in the wind, it was like a dream. The last time he came, Chen Hao only had the test in his mind, only the test. But this time, when he truly stood at the peak of the heavenly road and looked down, Chen Hao could not help but have the urge to howl towards the sky. White clouds, a gentle breeze, layers of clouds swayed in his chest, and the view of the mountains was small. It was as if he was in a fairyland. This is the entrance to the Origin Spirit Cave. Later, after we open the restriction, you all can enter. First Elder, give it to them, Shao Ding said in a deep voice. Hearing Shao Ding's words, First Elder Shao Yuan took out a jade bottle from his bosom and said, "These are fasting pills. Take one and you won't need to eat for a day. 5 for each person, wait, 10 for each person." Shao Ding glanced at Chen Hao and Shao Jihan and said with a slight frown, "In the past, the Shao clan's disciples would enter the Origin Spirit Cave within 2 to 3 days before they could no longer endure it. The record holder for the longest time was Shao Ding, 5 days. But this time, Shao Jihan and Chen Hao's aptitude and talent were stronger than Shao Ding's. They might even break his record and come out early because they did not have enough fasting pills. It would be a great loss for the 2 of them. Besides Chen Hao and Shao Jihan, Shao Jishan and the taciturn Shao Jifei also had aptitudes comparable to Shao Ding's. It was because of this that Shao Ding said this. Shao Yuan glanced at Shao Jihan and nodded in response. Rise. When Shao Ding stood at the center of the high platform at the edge of the training field, the 4 honorable guests and 6 elders stood in 10 different directions around the high platform. They all shouted at the same time. Rays of powerful, majestic, and terrifying brown origin energy, which symbolized the martial emperor realm, burst out from the 11 of them. In an instant, with Shao Ding as the center, The origin energy condensed into a pillar of brown light that shot up to the sky. Chen Hao and all the spectating disciples widened their eyes in shock, especially the disciples of the Xiang generation who had never seen it before. This is the power of a martial emperor? Chen Hao's eyes blazed as he stared at the huge pillar of light. His mind trembled violently. This was the first time he had seen the power of a martial emperor. He had never imagined that the power of a martial emperor would be so strong. Especially Xiao Ding, who was at the center of it all. The thick brown protective aura surrounding his body was actually suffused with a layer of faint, indistinct blue light. The aura around his body was obviously higher than that of the 4 honorable guests and the 6 elders. Not only was Chen Hao and the other disciples of the Shao clan astonished, even the honorable guests and the 6 elders were astonished, and almost lost their minds. A blue light appeared. The martial emperor had appeared. With the strength that Xiao Ding had displayed, there was no doubt that he had already comprehended the barrier of the martial emperor realm. It was only a matter of time before he stepped into the martial emperor realm. Rumble. After a short moment, everyone's terrifying origin energy merged into one. Under Xiao Ding's control, it streaked across the air in a mysterious trajectory. A series of rumbling sounds could be heard, and the entire high platform actually started to rotate slowly. As the high platform rotated, an icy cold aura instantly spread out, causing Chen Hao and the rest to shiver uncontrollably. Go in. Remember, if you can't hold on any longer, come back immediately. I don't want anything to happen to you. Yes. Chen Hao and the other disciples responded. Xiao Jihan took the lead and stepped into the cave that could only fit one person. Then, the rest of the Shi generation followed suit. Author's note: thank you for yesterday. Lone Star and Moon, Wine Powder, Cool Breeze Scent Drizzle, This Damned Life, Passionate Love Carrot Carrot, Emo Chingy, Nimble Red Dust, Chuan Liang Woozy, Naughty Watermelon, Free and Easy Walk, FDGRFGR, Flying God's Dream. Thanks to 12 friends for their support. I don't even have the energy to ask for votes. If you have a vote, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. If you don't have a vote, please click on the chapters. Thank you. Chapter 36. Congratulations, Big Brother! Congratulations, Patriarch! After Chen Hao and the others entered the cave of Yuanling, Xiao Gang's face shone with excitement and joy as he spoke respectfully. The other guests and elders also congratulated him. Xiao Yuan, Xiao Bo, and Sima Qianli did not dare to be negligent. However, the expressions on their faces were not very natural. It was obvious that they had gone against Xiao Ding's wishes because of Xiao Jihan's matter. Xiao Ding had never cared about the factions formed by the honored guests and elders in the family, and he treated everyone equally. However, that was when he was not much stronger than them. What if he became a martial emperor? It's just a coincidence that I was one step ahead of you. It's nothing. Alright, those who have something to do can leave first and come back in 2 days. Those who have nothing to do can stay here. Xiao Ding said. I'm fine. I'm fine too. I don't want to leave such an important matter. As Xiao Ding had expected, no one left. Although these fellows were divided into 3 factions and constantly fought both openly and covertly to seek some personal benefits for themselves, they did not dare to be careless when it came to important matters that concerned the future of the Xiao family. Otherwise, he would not have ignored them for the past few years. Obviously, everyone present wanted to see how these 10 disciples reaped in the cave of Yuanling. The ones who looked forward to it the most were undoubtedly Xiao Jihan and Chen Hao, followed by Xiao Jishan and Xiao Jifei, who were also outstanding disciples. However, they were overshadowed by Chen Hao and Xiao Jihan. If you want to qualify to enter, work hard and cultivate. The results will only be out in 2 days. There's nothing to see now. Go back. Xiao Guan and the other instructors shouted at the crowd. What dense Yuanli! As the group went deeper into the narrow passageway, the icy aura became more and more intense. At the same time, the yuan li in the air also became abnormally dense. Chen Hao was a little surprised and thought to himself, no wonder the cave of Yuanling became the sacred cultivation ground of the Shao family. This is just the entrance, and the yuan li is more than twice as dense as the outside. How dense would the core area be? After walking for 100 feet down the narrow passageway, the passageway suddenly widened, and they finally arrived at a huge natural karst cave. Damn it, it's really cold. Xiao Jishan, who was walking behind Chen Hao, felt the bone-piercing cold and cursed under his breath. He turned around to look at Xiao Jifei and frowned slightly. Xiao Fei, you can't force yourself this time. You'll die. Yes, Xiao Jifei replied softly. However, the passion and determination in his eyes didn't change in the slightest. Chen Hao's sharp intuition could sense how determined this taciturn Xiao Jifei was to become stronger. Is it useful to force yourself? I didn't expect you to be so patient. A grade 1 martial master isn't simple. Unfortunately, as long as I'm here, you can only tuck your tail between your legs. No, I should say, the two of you, ha ha. What Chen Hao didn't expect was that Xiao Jihan, who was walking at the front, actually turned around and said disdainfully. Not only did he insult Xiao Jifei, he even included him. His appearance was as arrogant as it could get. It was a blatant provocation. Xiao Jifei's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. He clenched his fists tightly, and even his body began to tremble slightly. His eyes shone with overflowing hatred and resentment, but he had no choice but to endure. Strength was everything. He wasn't Xiao Jihan's opponent at all. Xiao Jihan, you're just a grade 5 martial warrior. What's there to be arrogant about? If you weren't despicable and shameless enough to do something to Xiao Fei, you wouldn't have been the #1 genius. Also, I'm only 15 years old this year. At this time next year, I won't be any worse than you are now. Even if the two of us aren't as good as you, there's still Xiang Hao. Do you think you're worthy of being compared to Xiang Hao? Xiao Jishan retorted fearlessly, don't play your little tricks in front of me. Are you afraid? You want to anger them and take the opportunity to get rid of them? If you have the guts, get rid of me too. I see. When Chen Hao heard Xiao Jishan's words, he immediately understood what was going on with Xiao Jifei. He frowned slightly and his eyes flashed as he said, Senior brother Jishan, Senior brother Jifei, why are you bickering with a piece of trash that's about to die? Chen Hao's arrogant words made Xiao Jishan frown. Xiao Jishan might seem crude, but he was actually very meticulous. The reason why he had spoken so clearly earlier was because he was afraid that Chen Hao wouldn't be able to hold back his anger. He wasn't worried about Xiao Jifei. After all, if Xiao Jifei didn't know how to endure silently, he would have been a cripple 2 years ago. If they were to really fight here, with Xiao Jihan's cultivation of a 5th-grade martial master, even if the three of them worked together, they wouldn't be able to defeat him. Although Xiao Jihan wouldn't dare to do anything to him, Chen Hao and Xiao Jifei were different. You called me trash and said that I'm about to die? Haha. Boom! Just as Xiao Jishan expected, Xiao Jihan suddenly stopped and turned around. The night crystal on the cave wall emitted a faint white light, causing Xiao Jihan's face to become extremely sinister and terrifying. At the same time, the vigorous elemental energy around his body started to surge. What? You don't believe me? Then I don't mind sending you to the next world. Chen Hao suddenly turned his head. His voice seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. At the same time, an incomparably cold aura was emitted from Chen Hao's body in an instant. Those pitch-black eyes were like 2 unsheathed treasured swords, shining with 2 resplendent rays of light in this slightly dusky cave. Aura. Aura that pressed forward courageously. Confidence, arrogance, and an aura that looked down on the world. Xiao Jishan, who originally wanted to stop Chen Hao, couldn't help but stop his actions under Chen Hao's aura. His expression was slightly dazed. He had already seen Chen Hao erupt with such an aura twice, but the previous 2 times couldn't be compared to this one. In fact, at this moment, whether it was Xiao Jishan, Xiao Jifei, or the other disciples, they had completely forgotten about the difference in cultivation between Chen Hao and Xiao Jihan. They felt that Chen Hao would definitely win. This was completely unreasonable, but they still believed that Chen Hao could defeat Xiao Jihan. While the 2 of them were locked in a stalemate, the other disciples all retreated with extreme shock on their faces. No one expected that the 2 of them would clash again at this moment. Xiao Jihan, who was originally prepared to attack, was also stunned by Chen Hao's aura. His expression became uncertain, and after being dazed for a few seconds, he took a deep breath and said, "You want to die? It's not that easy. I'll crush you to death in front of everyone. Just you wait." Xiao Jihan said coldly. After saying that, his figure flashed and he didn't stay any longer. He quickly walked towards the core area of the Yuan Spirit Cave. Chen Hao's cold aura gradually retracted as he forcefully suppressed his nearly uncontrollable desire to battle. Seeing the way Xiao Jishan and the others were looking at him, Chen Hao felt rather helpless. Logic told him that he was still no match for Xiao Jihan. When Xiao Jihan deliberately provoked him with his words, he was very calm, but he still chose to fight back. This was because he knew that since Xiao Jihan had such thoughts, he would definitely find an excuse to attack during this Yuan Spirit Cave cultivation. Since that was the case, what was the use of enduring and retreating? He might as well fight to his heart's content. However, Chen Hao didn't expect Xiao Jihan to be such a coward and be scared off by him. Chen Hao himself didn't know how frightening his aura was just now. Although Xiao Jihan was scared off by him, Xiao Jishan and the others didn't look down on him. If they asked themselves honestly, if they were in his shoes, they would probably choose to retreat as well. "Senior brother, let's quickly go in and cultivate." Chen Hao regained his calm appearance as if nothing had happened as he spoke to Xiao Jishan and Xiao Jifei. "Okay. Xiang Hao, I believe in you. You can definitely defeat that trash. I also want to kill him with my own hands. Unfortunately, I'm afraid you'll be ahead of me." The taciturn Xiao Jifei actually stared at Chen Hao with a trace of complex emotions in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "If you succeed, I'll owe you a favor. If you fail, one day I'll avenge you. Hee, senior brother Jifei, I'll make him repay your share as well." Chen Hao chuckled lightly, and his eyes flickered with a wisp of determination as he said, "Let's hurry up and get started." Chen Hao relied on his keen perception to sense the dense Yuanli and icy aura in the surroundings. Together with Xiao Jishan and Xiao Jifei, they quickly walked into the depths of the Yuanling cave. As they went deeper, the Yuanli in the air became denser and the icy aura became more bone-piercing. Unfortunately, to Chen Hao's disappointment, he didn't sense any abnormalities. "The Yuanli in this Yuanling cave is so dense, yet I can't sense any spiritual herbs. It should be because the icy aura is too strong and wiped out all life," Chen Hao said regretfully in his heart. In the 4 months of training in the Demon Cloud mountain range, the reason why Chen Hao was able to step into the realm of a Grade 1 martial master was naturally because of his crazy cultivation that was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than ordinary people, as well as his aptitude and comprehension. However, if that was all, he wouldn't have been able to achieve such a shocking increase. In 4 months, he had advanced from a Grade 9 martial disciple to a Grade 1 martial master. That was a leap of 3 grades and 19 grades. What kind of concept was that? In 4 months, not only did Chen Hao kill countless demonic beasts, he also obtained many Grade 1 and Grade 2 spiritual herbs. The last time he encountered the mushroom toad, he even obtained a Grade 4 spiritual herb. To ordinary people, this was simply inconceivable. After all, as long as it could be called a spiritual herb, even if it was the lowest Grade 1 spiritual herb, it was a rare existence. However, the amount of spiritual herbs that Chun Hao obtained in 4 months definitely exceeded that of a 100-man professional herb-gathering team. Even Chun Hao himself didn't know why his perception of spiritual herbs was so sensitive. As long as there was a spiritual herb within 100 feet of him, he could sense it. We're here, it's here. When the 3 of them saw Xiao Jihan and the other disciples sitting cross-legged in front of them with a faintly discernible waterfall above their heads, Xiao Jishan stopped in his tracks and said, "P.S. Second update. Dear friends, Wu Shan is bare-chested. Please click, recommend, bookmark, reward, comment, praise, book review, etc. Our little Ao Tian who is waiting to be fed really needs milk." Chapter 37. Amazing indeed, Chun Hao's eyes flickered with a trace of excitement as he gazed at the almost material waterfall of origin energy that appeared above their heads, and he thought to himself, "Xianghao, Xiaofei, let's split up and go in. Once we step into the core area, the essence energy and icy air will automatically pour into our bodies. Remember, when you reach the limit of your endurance, rush out of the core area immediately. Don't force yourself," Xiao Jishan emphasized again. And Chun Hao and Xiao Jifei responded. Immediately, the 3 of them split up and stepped into the core area of the Yuanling cave one after the other. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The moment the 3 of them stepped into the core area, the thick essence energy and icy air seemed to come alive, automatically gathering above the 3 of them and pouring into their heads. In an instant, it made the 3 of them freeze a little. Without the slightest hesitation, the 3 of them directly sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. Hiss, hiss. Chun Hao activated the 4th level of the secret to longevity that he had just broken through, swallowing and spitting out the vigorous essence energy that poured in from the top of his head. It circulated along the 4th level of the mantra's specific meridians and transformed into his own essence energy bit by bit. No wonder head instructor and Jishan let me seize this opportunity. This Yuanling cave is actually so powerful. Just after cultivating for a while, Chun Hao shockingly discovered that as essence energy poured in, he could clearly feel his essence energy becoming a little more vigorous every time it circulated along the meridians. Similarly, Chun Hao also truly understood why cultivators could not persist for long in the Yuanling cave. That icy air, even with Chun Hao's physical body, he felt a bone-deep chill as if every cell in his body was about to be frozen. Moreover, as time passed, the icy air that poured into his body became stronger and stronger. Chun Hao was clear that when he could not withstand this icy air purely by relying on his physical body, he had to divide his attention to expend essence energy to resist the icy air while cultivating. When he could no longer withstand it, that was the time he walked out of the Yuanling cave. Xiao Ding had already explained this very clearly the day before entering the cave. As time passed, the entire Yuanling cave was silent. Only 10 figures were sitting cross-legged in the core area of the cave, seizing every second to cultivate. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. At the peak of Heaven's Road, Xiao Ding and the rest sat cross-legged on a high platform. At the beginning of the 3rd day, the huge martial arts practice field at the peak of the mountain was already crowded with people. Some of the Xiao clan disciples had already rushed over to watch the show. They were all discussing and guessing who would be the last to come out. Without a doubt, the rank 5 martial master Xiao Jihan had the most support. After all, Chun Hao was only a grade 1 martial master. Although most people believed that Chun Hao's cultivation talent was stronger than Xiao Jihan's, the gap between the 2 of them was still too large. Hiss, in the Yuanling cave, Xiao Jihan, Xiao Jishan, and the rest who were gritting their teeth and persisting in their cultivation had already cultivated for 2 whole days. Their physical bodies were already unable to withstand the increasingly terrifying icy air. At this moment, they were all resisting the icy air while cultivating, enduring the extreme pain. However, at this moment, a violent fluctuation suddenly came from a direction. Almost instantly, Even a portion of the essence energy and icy air around them seemed to have been sucked away. Xiao Jihan, Xiao Jishan, and the rest immediately opened their eyes in shock and looked in the direction of the fluctuation. Chen Hao. What shocked them was that the one who caused the huge fluctuation was actually Chen Hao. At this moment, Chen Hao was crazily devouring the essence energy around him, as if he did not care about his life. What was even more shocking was that his body seemed to have condensed into ice crystals. His face, hands, neck, and all the parts that were exposed to the outside were sparkling with an ice crystal-like glow. Xiao Jihan, Xiao Jishan, and the rest all widened their eyes. They simply could not believe what they were seeing. How was this possible? It was obvious that the icy air in Chen Hao's body was extremely dense. From the looks of it, he should have already been frozen into a popsicle. However, the violent fluctuation of essence energy and the crazy devouring made everyone present understand that Chen Hao was still cultivating and was still conscious. Break! Under the dumbfounded gazes of Xiao Jihan and the rest, a deep and clear shout suddenly came from Chen Hao's mouth. At the same time, a majestic fluctuation of essence energy suddenly emitted from his body. Kacha! Kacha! The subtle sound of ice crystals shattering could be heard from Chen Hao's body. At the same time, a faint red protective chi slowly condensed around Chen Hao's body. The color of the protective chi was constantly deepening. After a few breaths of time, it finally stopped changing. The dazzling light red protective energy exuded a powerful and majestic pressure. Grade 2 Martial Master. Without a doubt, Chen Hao had already stepped into Grade 2 Martial Master. Amazing, Xiao Jishan muttered with a trace of astonishment. The gazes of Xiao Jifei, Xiao Shiqing, and the rest also became abnormally hot. Grade 2 Martial Master. Chen Hao had actually broken through so easily. What kind of talent was this? What kind of comprehension was this? It had to be known that it had only been 3 days since Chen Hao had advanced to Grade 1 Martial Master. Chen Hao did not seem to feel the astonishment of the crowd. After breaking through to Grade 2 Martial Master, his protective chi directly entered his dantian. Without any hesitation, he once again entered a meditative state like an old monk and entered a state of cultivation. Xiao Jihan gritted his teeth as he forcefully suppressed the shock in his heart. In half a year, Chen Hao had broken through from a Grade 7 martial warrior to a Grade 5 martial master. With such talent, even when he saw Chen Hao break through to a Grade 1 martial master, he did not think that he was inferior to Chen Hao. After all, the barrier after stepping into the martial master realm was the true test of one's comprehension. But now, although Xiao Jihan did not want to admit it, he had no choice but to admit that Chen Hao's talent and comprehension had definitely surpassed his. I will definitely not lose to him. Definitely not. Xiao Jihan roared in his heart. His mind instantly entered a state of emptiness as he completely immersed himself in cultivation. It had to be said that Xiao Jihan's cultivation talent was quite astonishing. In just an instant, he had completely cast aside all distracting thoughts. An ordinary person would definitely not be able to do this. When Xiao Jishan and the rest saw this, they gritted their teeth and once again immersed themselves in cultivation, unwilling to admit defeat. However, they were not Chen Hao. No matter how unwilling they were to admit defeat, no matter how hard they tried, they would eventually reach their limits. After only 4 hours, the 2 people ranked at the bottom of the sure generation could no longer resist the invasion of the icy chi. They dragged their stiff bodies and with great difficulty mustered the last of their strength and relied on their willpower to walk out of the core area step by step. The moment they stepped out of the core area, the 2 of them were enveloped by a mysterious, terrifying, and irresistible force and were directly pushed toward the entrance of the elemental spirit cave. On the 3rd day, Xiao Shiqing was eliminated. On the 4th day, the 3 Grade 3 martial masters of the sure generation and Xiao Jishan were eliminated one after another. Out of the 10 disciples, only Xiao Jihan, Chen Hao, and Xiao Jifei were left. Xiao Jihan and Chen Hao were within everyone's expectations, but Xiao Jifei exceeded everyone's expectations and caused quite a stir. As time passed, the number of people in the martial arts practice field on the peak of the heavenly road did not decrease at all. Instead, it increased. There was no doubt that the further it went, the more curious and attentive everyone became. On the 5th day, the martial arts practice field was densely packed with people. Xiao Jishan and a few other disciples who had already come out sat cross-legged on the edge of the high platform, paying attention to the changes at the entrance of the elemental spirit cave. The others were fine, but Xiao Jishan's brows were deeply furrowed, and there was a trace of worry in his expression. Others might not know why Xiao Jifei was able to last until now, but he, who knew Xiao Jifei the best, knew that he was relying on his obsession to support himself. He had cautiously reminded him twice, but in the end, he was still unable to stop Xiao Jifei's madness. It's been 5.5 days. It's within my expectations that Jihan and Xiang Hao could do it, but I didn't expect Xiao Jifei to be able to last so long. It's really unexpected, Xiao Ding said softly with a gratified look on his face. In the first year that Xiao Jifei entered the Xiao family, he was originally the #1 genius of the Ji generation. Unfortunately, his meridians were severely damaged by Xiao Jihan, and his cultivation did not improve for more than a year. Xiao Xianghao is another disciple with even higher talent. Unfortunately, his ending is probably even worse than Xiao Jifei's. Second elder Xiao Gang, who was also Xiao Jishan's father, suddenly looked at sixth elder and said meaningfully, "If not for the help of the father and son duo, Xiao Jifei would have been crippled long ago." The matter was already in the past, and there was no need for him to mention it. However, since his eldest brother, Xiao Ding, had mentioned it, coupled with the matter of Xiao Jihan and Xiao Xianghao, he could not help but mention it. "Xiao Gang, what do you mean?" Sixth elder immediately said unhappily. "Why do you need to ask me? You should know better than anyone else." Enough. Seeing that the two of them were about to argue, Xiao Ding waved his hand and interrupted that person. He said in a deep voice, "The matter is already in the past, what's the point of arguing? As long as it doesn't violate the Xiao family's rules, I can turn a blind eye. This is only the Xiao family, and the growth of a cultivator is filled with thorns and cruelty. This is also the reason why our Xiao family does not prohibit disciples from challenging each other. Adversity is the most important factor in tempering a cultivator's character. Isn't Xiao Jifei better now?" "But..." Xiao Ding paused for a moment and glanced at the sixth elder. "There's a limit to everything." "Sixth elder, what do you say?" Although Xiao Ding did not say it clearly, anyone could tell that he was warning him. Xiao Bo's face flushed red, but seeing Xiao Ding's calm and composed gaze, he could only suppress the dissatisfaction in his heart and said, "Patriarch is right. That's good." Xiao Ding's expression suddenly changed. "Someone is coming out. P.S. Thank you to Chuan Liangguizi, Xiao Feng Sen Drizzle, Passionate Love Carrot, Fish That Can't Really Swim, Mo Chingy for their tip. Many thanks. Please recommend me." Chapter 38. Boom! As soon as Xiao Ding finished speaking, a strand of profound, boundless, and icy cold energy sprayed out from the entrance of the Origin Spirit Cave, and then a figure that was enveloped within it directly shot out. Instantly, it drew the gazes of everyone in the martial practice grounds. 5.5 days. Such a result was even better than Xiao Ding's from back then. Although coming out at this time, it was obvious that he could only be ranked third, but he was also the object of everyone's admiration, without a doubt. Being able to persist for so long was sufficient to prove that his potential and temperament were absolutely top-notch. It really is Xiao Jifei, as everyone expected. The one who came out this time was Xiao Jifei. When Xiao Jishan saw that it was Xiao Jifei, his tightly knitted brows finally relaxed. But, after an instant, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. Why is it like this? What made everyone surprised and puzzled was that Xiao Jifei, who was ejected, actually seemed to be in an unconscious state. His body actually maintained a walking posture in the air. As he tumbled down stiffly, Xiao Ding suddenly waved his hand at Xiao Jifei's figure and grabbed at the air. Instantly, majestic brown essence energy seemed to condense into a large hand of essence energy, directly grabbing Xiao Jifei to his side. The instant he touched Xiao Jifei, Xiao Ding's expression was extremely shocked. No matter what, he never imagined that Xiao Jifei's body was actually like solid ice. A terrifying icy aura filled his body. Such a situation clearly already completely exceeded Xiao Jifei's endurance limit. How did he walk out of the Essence Spirit Cave's core area? Uncle, what's wrong with little Fei? Xiao Jishan quickly ran to Xiao Ding's side and asked with an anxious expression. Don't worry. As Xiao Ding spoke, his palm pressed against Xiao Jifei's dantian. A pure and vigorous essence energy directly poured into Xiao Jifei's dantian. After a full 10 minutes, with the help of Xiao Ding's essence energy, Xiao Jifei's stiff body finally slowly relaxed, and he slowly woke up. Thank you, Patriarch. Xiao Jifei's eyes flashed with a trace of gratitude as he said, Kid, are you crazy? Do you know that this is life-threatening? Fortunately, you walked out of the core area. If you were a little later, you would have lost your life. Although Xiao Ding was reprimanding, everyone could hear the concern in his tone. Patriarch, A trace of fear flashed across Xiao Jifei's face. All right, be careful in the future. Did you see anything about the two of them? Xiao Ding asked. No. I didn't see him. But... Xiao Jifei seemed to hesitate, but he still mustered up his courage and said, My life was saved by Xiang Hao. What? Xiao Jifei's words shocked everyone, especially Xiao Ding, whose eyes were wide open. When I felt that I couldn't hold on any longer, I wanted to walk out. Only, my body was already completely out of control. I just took a step and fell down. At that time, I thought, I would never be able to walk out of the Yuanling cave again. It was also at that time that I heard Xiang Hao call out to me. After that, I lost consciousness. I think it was Xiang Hao who sent me out of the core area. Xiao Jifei's eyes were filled with deep gratitude as he explained. Xiao Ding was at a loss for words. Everyone was also shocked beyond belief. On the other hand, 6th Elder Xiao Bo's expression became extremely unsightly. No one could imagine how Chen Hao did it. One had to know that 5.5 days had already passed. How terrifying would the icy air be? Not to mention sending someone out of the core area. Even if one wanted to come out, they would have to endure extreme pain, not to mention diverting their energy to save someone. However, Chen Hao did it. Little Fei, did Xiang Hao advance again? Seeing that Xiao Jifei was out of danger, Xiao Jishan immediately asked curiously. Hearing Xiao Jishan's words, everyone looked at Xiao Jifei again, especially 6th Elder. His heart was thumping. It had to be said that this old man's tenacious nerves were about to collapse from Chen Hao's attacks. When the first 2 C-generation disciples came out, everyone already knew that Chen Hao had advanced to grade 2 martial master in just 2 days in the Yuanling cave. Now, they just found out that Xiao Jifei was able to come out alive because of Chen Hao. I don't think so. Half a day ago, Xiao Jihan's direction sent out a violent Yuanling fluctuation. He should have broken through to grade 6 martial master. Xiao Jifei's face flashed with intense hatred and a faint sense of unease as he spoke. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. It's been 10 days. The talent of these 2 brats is indeed unmatched. Sigh. Xiao Ding's expression was extremely conflicted. The Xiao clan hadn't seen such geniuses in decades. It wasn't easy for them to meet 2 at the same time, and they were mortal enemies. Even the Patriarch himself couldn't mediate between them. It was truly too conflicted. It had been 10 days, but Xiao Jihan and Chen Hao still hadn't come out. not to mention Xiao Ding and the rest. Even Elder Xiao, who had arrived on the 6th day, couldn't sit still. Old ancestor. Could something have happened to these two brats? The excitement on Xiao Ding's face had already disappeared and was replaced by deep worry. 10 days, it had already been 10 days. This had already exceeded everyone's expectations. Before entering the cave, Xiao Ding had specially asked First Elder Xiao Yuan to give out double the amount of fasting pills. In his opinion, no matter how strong Xiao Jihan and Chun Hao's talent, comprehension, and temperament were, 10 fasting pills were enough. But now, Xiao Ding couldn't help but worry. The fasting pills had already been used up, but the two of them still hadn't come out. Let's wait a little longer. Elder Xiao said with a frown. There was nothing he could do. Those who had entered the Yuanling cave would never have the chance to enter a second time. Even Elder Xiao was no exception. Moreover, the Yuanling cave's restrictions were something even Elder Xiao couldn't resist. Xiangling, go back and rest. You haven't returned to the dormitory for a few days. In a corner of the martial arts practice field, a few girls came to Lil Ling Er's side and advised her. Although 10 days had passed, the number of Shao clan disciples in the martial arts practice field hadn't decreased at all. Most of them casually rested at night. During the day, other than eating, they basically sat cross-legged on the martial arts practice field, cultivating while waiting for the final result. At the beginning, Lil Ling was still with her sisters, but after Xiao Jifei came out, other than eating, washing, and other things that had to be done, she didn't leave the martial arts practice field. She wanted to know about Chun Hao's news as soon as possible. It's fine. Don't you see that I'm in high spirits? There should be a result soon, right? I've already persevered until now, so I'll definitely persevere until the end. Xiangling, tell us honestly, have you fallen for Xiang Hao? What are you talking about? Lil Ling Er's face suddenly turned red and retorted, We're friends, good friends. He might be. I just want to hear my cheers the moment he comes out. As Lil Ling spoke, a touch of sadness appeared in her beautiful big eyes. When the girls heard Lil Ling Er's words, their expressions changed slightly. No one was joking anymore. That's right, the news had already spread that Xiao Jihan had broken through to the 6th grade martial master. What would the result of the life and death battle between Xiang Hao and him be like? Although the girls didn't want to see it and hoped for a miracle, the truth was that it was unlikely. I'll accompany you, Xiangling. And I'll accompany you too. Let Xiang Hao know that no matter what, we'll support him. A moment later, the girls all sat cross-legged beside Lil Ling. Although Xiang Hao didn't have much contact with them, because of Lil Ling they all knew what kind of suppression that youth in coarse clothes had endured. Suppression from Xiao Jihan. As the sun set in the west, the peak of heaven's path towered into the clouds, bathing in the afterglow of the setting sun. As everyone waited, the 10th day quietly passed. Hiss! Just when everyone thought that they had waited for another day in vain, a long-awaited energy fluctuation came from the entrance of Yuanling's cave. It's coming out, it's coming out, it's coming out. In an instant, the crowd burst into a burst of exclamations. The disciples who were sitting cross-legged all stood up nervously. Even Elder Xiao, Xiao Ding, and the others on the high platform all looked nervous and stood up abruptly. Whoosh, a figure, carrying a terrifying yuan power fluctuation mixed with a terrifying icy energy, rushed into the sky from the entrance of Yuanling's cave. The afterglow of the setting sun poured down on his body, as if there was a layer of golden halo around him. The slender figure danced in the wind, his white robe fluttering in the wind. His jade-like face was brimming with arrogance that looked down on the world. Xiao Jihan! Roar! Rumble, in the sky, Xiao Jihan suddenly let out a long howl towards the sky. His howl was like thunder, and it resounded in the sky above the Xiao residence. At the same time, a majestic and terrifying yuan power fluctuation erupted from Xiao Jihan's body like a flash flood. In an instant it condensed into a scarlet-red protective chi. The protective chi was like a blazing inferno that emitted a resplendent glow, as though it was competing with the sun and moon in splendor. In an instant, everyone in the martial arts practice hall, including Elder Xiao and Xiao Ding, widened their eyes in shock. Grade 7 Martial Master. Xiao Jihan had actually advanced to a Grade 7 Martial Master in a short span of 10 days. Unbelievable! Even if Xiao Jihan had advanced to the peak of a Grade 6 Martial Master, no one would be too surprised. After all, everyone had already heard the news from Xiao Jifei. However, breaking through to Grade 7 was truly shocking. In the martial artist realm, Grade 1 to Grade 3 were considered inferior, Grade 4 to Grade 6 were considered intermediate, and Grade 7 to Grade 9 were considered superior. The most difficult barrier was Grade 3 to Grade 4, and Grade 6 to Grade 7. Once one broke through to Grade 7, it meant that one had stepped into the realm of superior martial master. Hiss, 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 as Xiao Jihan circulated the origin energy in his body, the terrifying icy chi that had invaded his body lost the support of the elemental spirit cave and was instantly defeated. It was forced out of his body by Xiao Jihan's violent strength, turning into streaks of icy blue light and disappearing from the world. Greetings, elders! When Xiao Jihan landed on the high platform under the shocked gazes of the crowd, his eyes shone with confidence and complacency. He cupped his fists and bowed to the crowd. He said respectfully, "This disciple didn't expect to last this long. I've made all of you wait." After Xiao Jihan said this, his gaze quickly swept across the high platform. He frowned slightly and said, "The 9 of them should have come out long ago, right?" Ah. Xiao Jihan's words caused Elder Xiao, Xiao Ding, and everyone in the martial arts practice hall to widen their eyes in astonishment. "Jihan, you didn't see Xiang Hao?" Xiao Ding asked with a frown. "Him?" Xiao Jihan's expression changed as he said, "Didn't that kid come out with Xiao Jifei on the 5th day? P.S. Second update. Ao Tianxuan is officially recruiting, welcoming both old and new friends. VIP Group 1539533979, restricted to VIP users. Normal Readers Group 1832171135, accessible to registered users of Qidian. Looking for recommendation tickets and members to click. Please support Wu Shan, my dear brothers and sisters." Chapter 39. Ao Tianxuan officially recruiting. Welcome new and old friends. VIP Group 1539533979, restricted to VIP users. Normal Readers Group 1832171135, accessible to registered Qidian users. Looking for recommendation tickets and members to click on it. After reading it, can you please help me bookmark it? Thank you. Xiao Jifei came out by himself. Are you sure you didn't see Xiang Hao when you came out? Xiao Ding asked. I'm sure. Since he didn't come out, he must have died in there. Otherwise, I would have sensed his presence when I came out, Xiao Jihan said with unconcealable excitement on his face. Although Xiao Jihan really wanted to use his cultivation as a Grade 7 martial master to ruthlessly stomp Chen Hao into minced meat in front of everyone, Chen Hao's death in the Origin Spirit Cave wasn't a bad thing. After all, although Chen Hao's cultivation wasn't as good as his, he somehow made him feel a trace of fear from the depths of his heart. Especially in the Yuanling cave this time, Xiao Ding and Old Man Xiao didn't know what to do. Xiao Gang and the rest were frowning as they considered whether Xiao Jihan's words were true. All the Xiao clan disciples in the martial arts practice field were holding their breaths with fear in their hearts. Suddenly, a voice drifted out from the Yuanling cave. Xiao Jihan, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. If you don't die, how can I die? The voice wasn't loud and was faint, but it was filled with boundless indifference and arrogance that came from the depths of one's bones as it drifted into everyone's ears. What surprised everyone was that there weren't any energy fluctuations at the Yuanling cave's entrance. Instead, a slightly thin but tall figure walked out of the Yuanling cave as if he was taking a stroll. There was no icy cold air, no origin energy enveloping him, and he wasn't ejected. Just like that, he walked step by step towards Elder Xiao, Xiao Ding, and the others under the gazes of everyone present. Only his pitch-black eyes contained a wisp of faintly discernible light, and anyone that looked into his eyes would have the feeling as if they'd fallen into another world. That world was filled with endless ice and snow storms. Stinking brat! Elder Zhao's furrowed brows immediately relaxed. Who else could it be other than Chen Hao? Sensing the completely restrained aura on Chen Hao's body, Elder Xiao was astounded in his heart. His aged and ordinary face couldn't conceal the joy, shock, and excitement in his heart, and his voice carried a trace of trembling as he called out to Chen Hao. How is this possible? Xiao Ding was so excited that his entire body was trembling. The gaze he used to look at Chen Hao was not only filled with shock and excitement, but also incomparable envy and jealousy. Other than the two of them, Xiao Gang and the other 6 elders, as well as the 4 guest elders, as well as all the Xiao family disciples in the martial arts practice field, were all deeply puzzled. They simply could not understand why Old Man Xiao and the Patriarch were so shocked when they saw Chen Hao. The aura on Chen Hao's body was simply incomparable to Xiao Jihan's. They were only astonished and shocked at how Chen Hao had not caused any disturbance when he walked out of the primordial spirit cave, and how he had walked out so easily. When Xiao Jihan saw Chen Hao miraculously walk out, especially when he saw Chen Hao's gaze, even his voice trembled. It was a fear that came from the depths of his heart after being repeatedly shocked by Chen Hao. However, this fear was immediately suppressed by Xiao Jihan as he roared, "I'm already a Grade 7 Martial Master, Grade 7 Martial Master. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Afraid of me? Hee, did I say you were afraid of me? I understand. It seems like you're really afraid of me, so afraid that you're talking to yourself. Is there any use in being afraid? You'll only be able to live until the Cloud Province Martial Gathering. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have the ability to meet me. Otherwise, I can only let you live for a few more days after the Cloud Province Martial Gathering ends. Eat whatever you want, play whatever you want, you must know how to cherish your life." To everyone's astonishment, a faint smile appeared on Chen Hao's handsome face at this moment. His aura seemed to have changed all of a sudden. It was now filled with a hint of laziness and a hint of evilness. That faint and calm voice contained arrogance and disdain that came from his bones. It was disdain for Xiao Jihan. Cherish your life. Ha! Ha ha! Xiao Jihan was so angry that he started laughing. His somewhat handsome face became a little distorted as he stared at Chen Hao with a sinister gaze. He said through gritted teeth, "You're not qualified. I'll let you know who will have the last laugh." The Yuanling cave finally came to an end. The majority of the people were unable to determine who had won the battle between Xiao Jihan and Chen Hao. After all, the two of them came out at almost the same time. Xiao Jihan had broken through to Grade 7 Martial Master, while Chen Hao did not reveal any aura when he came out. However, due to Old Man Xiao and Xiao Ding's shock, the people faintly felt that things were not that simple. What realm had he broken through to? No one knew. Even 6th Elder Xiao Bo and the other higher-ups of the Xiao clan did not know. However, 6th Elder and the rest were incomparably clear that Chen Hao's harvest in the Yuanling cave was probably far beyond their imagination. This was because of Old Man Xiao and Xiao Ding's shock, and also because after sealing the Yuanling cave, the two of them directly left with Chen Hao. They did not even summon Xiao Jihan, who had broken through to Grade 7 Martial Master. In the deepest part of the Xiao clan's inner courtyard, in a simple and secluded courtyard, Chen Hao sat in front of Old Man Xiao and Xiao Ding. The expression on his face had already returned to that of a simple and unscheming youth. There was even a trace of straightforwardness that made Old Man Xiao and Xiao Ding feel helpless. Is it really that little? Old Man Xiao stared at Chen Hao in disbelief and asked, Grade 1 is 10 taels of gold, Grade 1 is a little more than 1 tael. Don't hide it, cough cough. Old Man Xiao, Patriarch, it's really that little. That's right. Old Man Xiao, I remember you said that if I could enter the top 100 in the year-end competition, I would be rewarded with 100 taels of gold. It hasn't been fulfilled yet. I have already exceeded the quota. What made Old Man Xiao almost collapse was that it would have been fine if he did not mention the gold. Now that he did, this stinking brat actually brought it up. Isn't it just a fart of gold? What Old Man did for you, stinking brat, is it something that can be measured by gold? You have really disappointed Old Man. Old Man Xiao was so angry that he was fuming with rage. Cough cough. Xiang Hao, when the Cloud State Martial Meet ends, you will know when you return home. Old Ancestor, what our Xiao clan has done for you is not something that can be measured by gold. In short, as long as the Xiao clan still exists, you do not need to have any worries. The Xiao clan will always be your backing. Xiao Ding could not help but interrupt. His words were extremely firm. Hearing the two's words, Chen Hao was slightly surprised in his heart. At the same time, he was also filled with gratitude. Although he did not know what Old Man Xiao had done, Xiao Ding's words made Chen Hao understand that his family had definitely obtained the protection of the Xiao clan without him knowing. Furthermore, it might be an extraordinary protection. Chen Hao looked at the two's eyes that were filled with anticipation. He scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said, My level is really at the peak of Grade 2 Martial Master. Stinking brat, tell us the truth. No one has ever been able to walk out of the Yuanling cave by themselves. Old Man Xiao said. Actually, it's nothing much. I just comprehended an absolute art. It shouldn't be too bad, as expected. Ha ha. Is it related to the icy chi? What made Chen Hao surprised was that Old Man Xiao and Xiao Ding actually looked at each other. They seemed to be extremely excited, especially Old Man Xiao. At this moment, he suddenly seemed to be many years younger. His old face was suffused with a red glow as he asked two consecutive questions. Yes. Strictly speaking, it can't be considered an absolute art. It's just like this. Chen Hao knew that he could not hide it, so he might as well not hide it anymore. As he spoke, he activated the Yuan power in his dantian. Immediately, a light red Yuan power gushed out from his palm. What made Old Man Xiao and Xiao Ding surprised was that Chen Hao's Yuan power, which was considered very weak to them, actually contained a bone-chilling energy. In an instant, the temperature in the entire room rapidly dropped. Mysterious ice chi. It's really mysterious ice chi. You, a martial master, can actually control mysterious ice chi. Although Old Man Xiao had already guessed this possibility, seeing Chen Hao actually use it at this moment, he was still indescribably shocked. P.S. Thanks to Xiao Feng sent drizzle, passionate love carrot ching ching, emo chingy, chuan liang wuzi, fish that can't really swim, Albert_47, E. Chen, the 8 students' rewards, thank you very much. After reading the update, those students who haven't added it yet, please add it to your collection, thank you. Chapter 40. Mysterious Ice Chi? Is Elder Xiao very powerful? Looking at Elder Xiao and Xiao Ding's shocked expressions, Chen Hao asked in slight surprise. In his mind, it was just a coincidence that the icy chi in the elemental spirit cave merged into his own origin power. It was no big deal. However, he didn't expect Elder Xiao and Xiao Ding to be so shocked. It seemed that it was far from simple. It's more than powerful. Elder Xiao took a deep breath and said, A martial artist's cultivation goes against the heavens and changes one's fate. The highest realm is turn the 5 elements, reverse yin and yang. Only by reaching this realm can one become a legendary existence that surpasses the martial god realm, Legendary existence? Chen Hao suddenly said in surprise. What was the martial god realm? Martial artists were divided into 9 levels: martial disciple, martial student, martial warrior, martial master, martial emperor, martial ancestor, martial saint, and martial god. This was the highest realm he knew so far. The martial god realm was Chen Hao's ultimate goal. However, Elder Zhao's words now clearly told him that the martial god realm was not the end. The path of cultivation is endless. Although the martial god realm is powerful, it is only the highest realm of a martial artist. Above the martial god realm, there are still legendary existences that we can't touch. Old man's life is hopeless, Elder Zhao said with a trace of envy and gratification in his eyes. He continued, Brat, maybe one day you can reach it. This, turn the 5 elements, reverse yin and yang, refers to the 2 realms of the martial saint and martial god realm. Only by advancing to the martial saint realm can one comprehend the mystery of the 5 elements and truly merge one's own vigorous origin power with heaven and earth. As one wishes, one can convert it into the powerful and endlessly useful 5 elements energy. The 5 elements cycle endlessly. After reaching the peak realm, one can reverse yin and yang and step into the martial god realm. As for you, Elder Zhao paused slightly and continued, you comprehended a type of 5 elements energy at the martial master realm. Furthermore, it was the most powerful water attribute, mysterious ice chi. You're only a little over 12 years old. I don't dare to say that you'll definitely reach the martial god realm or surpass it and become a legendary existence, but old man can be sure that as long as you concentrate on your cultivation, there won't be any problem for you to advance to the martial saint realm. Martial saint is considered a top expert in our Zhenyuan kingdom. Chen Hao knew very well that old man Xiao was merely a martial emperor-level expert. As for what rank martial emperor he was, Chen Hao did not know. As for Xiao Ding, although he had comprehended the martial emperor barrier, he was still only a 9th-grade martial emperor. I'm actually that powerful? Chen Hao looked at old man Xiao and Xiao Ding's envious eyes and couldn't help but scratch his head as he said with a little embarrassment. You're very powerful, but it's your potential. Brat, old man is telling you now. Unless it's absolutely necessary, don't use the mysterious ice chi. Especially during the martial competition in Yin Province, don't use it. Your current cultivation is too weak, but you possess this kind of potential. If the other powers that are hostile to our Xiao clan were to find out, I'm afraid that no one would dare to let you grow. They would definitely use any means to eliminate you at all costs. Old man Xiao said with a serious expression. It's that serious? Yes. Xiao Ding also said in a deep voice. You can't tell anyone about this before you're truly strong. It's fine if it's an ordinary genius, even if it's someone like Xiao Jihan. However, you're different. Comprehending the mysterious ice chi at the martial master realm is too shocking. Who would dare to let an enemy who has a high chance of advancing to the martial saint realm grow? If it were our Xiao clan, we would also do it at all costs. Otherwise, our entire clan would be destroyed in the future. Yes, Xiao Ding is right. However, we don't mean for you to be patient. As a cultivator, you can never lose your drive to forge ahead. You must have the courage and sharpness that you should have. This is the heart of a cultivator. Once you lose it, you'll lose more than you gain. Unless you're in a life and death situation, don't use it. Do you understand what we mean? I understand. Don't worry, old man Xiao, clan, I know what to do. Chen Hao could feel the concern that old man Xiao and Xiao Ding had for him, so he did not dare to be careless. He nodded with a serious expression and said, That's good. Xianghao, you don't have to worry about the life and death battle between you and Xiao Jihan. Old man Xiao and I will think of a way, Xiao Ding said. Xiao Jihan had already advanced to a grade 7 martial master. For the time being, it was unlikely that Chen Hao would be a match for him. The difference in cultivation was too great. Although Chen Hao could control the mysterious ice qi, his cultivation was unable to display the true might of the mysterious ice qi. Furthermore, Chen Hao could not expose himself in front of everyone. Therefore, in Xiao Ding and Old Man Zhao's opinion, Chen Hao had no chance of winning. Clanhead, I don't want you and Old Man Xiao to interfere in this matter. Old Man Xiao also said that a martial artist cannot lose his martial heart. Just as Xiao Ding finished speaking, Chen Hao shook his head and said with a resolute expression, "This, Xiao Ding, listen to this kid." Just as Xiao Ding was about to say something, Old Man Xiao suddenly stopped him. "All right, then you should go and meet up with Xiao Guan and the rest. There are only 20 days left until the Cloud State Martial Gathering. In these 20 days, Xiao Guan and the rest will accompany you to train. You will be facing the other 3 great clans. It will be very important for you." Xiao Ding said, "Also, your spiritual medicine is with Xiao Mei. Xiao Mei will be your personal instructor and sparring partner for this period of time." Chen Hao replied and cupped his fists towards Old Man Xiao and Xiao Ding. After bowing, he walked out of the room. Seeing Chen Hao quickly leaving, Xiao Ding slightly frowned and asked Old Man Xiao, "Old Ancestor, could it be that you think Xiang Hao can defeat Xiao Jihan? I cannot be certain whether he can defeat Old Man or not. At least, I cannot be certain right now. However, for Xiao Jihan to want to kill him, I'm afraid that it's not very possible. This kid still has a lot of things that even I cannot see through. You should know that he entered the Magic Cloud Mountain Range to train when he was a rank 9 martial disciple, right?" "I know. Back then, how could Old Man dare to let him go alone? But..." Although Old Man Zhao's face was a bit conflicted, he still said, "Old Man actually lost him. Martial Emperor, I am a rank 6 Martial Emperor. To lose a martial disciple." At this, in the 4 months he spent in the Magic Cloud Mountain Range, he went from a 9th grade martial disciple to a martial master. Even if he were to meet Xiao Jihan in the Yun Province martial meet, it would still be close to a month later. With this brat's abnormal talent, can you tell what grade of martial master he will be after a month? Furthermore what? Xiao Ding was slightly moved. He had only thought of the disparity between Chen Hao and Xiao Jihan. However, he had overlooked Chen Hao's abnormal talent. Of course, this was also because he did not have a deep understanding of Chen Hao. According to Old Man's observation, this stinking brat never does anything that he is not confident in. Furthermore, there are a lot of things about him that Old Man cannot see through. Old Man Xiao shook his head. He seemed to be extremely depressed. However, he was also filled with expectation as he said, "Little Ding, our Xiao family is too small. His world is destined to surpass our imagination. You should now understand why Old Man treated his family like that, right?" "I understand." Xiao Ding revealed a trace of embarrassment. He said with a deep voice, "Old Ancestor is far-sighted. What we want is this good karma. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. When he truly matures, it will be enough if he remembers our Xiao family's kindness. Also, from now on, you should pay attention to the Dongfang family." Xiao Ding was slightly stunned when he heard Old Man Zhao's words. However, he immediately understood and said respectfully, "Yes, Old Ancestor." The older the ginger, the spicier it was. Xiao Ding had to admit that compared to Old Man Xiao, his foresight, insight, courage, and experience were still a far cry. Xiao Jihan's original name was Dongfang Han. The Dongfang family was Xiao Jihan's family. Although they were not a martial arts family, their influence in Cloud State was not inferior to the 4 great families. They were the richest family in Cloud State and had strong financial resources. They supported a group of experts and had deep connections with the Cloud State's city governor's estate and the four great families. This was the true hidden danger in the life and death battle between Chen Hao and Xiao Jihan. It was fine if Xiao Jihan won, but what if he was killed by Chen Hao? Since the Xiao family had chosen Chen Hao, they had to prepare for a rainy day. This was also the real reason why Xiao Ding found it hard to make a choice and was slightly dissatisfied with old man Xiao helping Chen Hao's family. The Xiao family's inner courtyard martial arts hall was the place where the Xiao family's inner disciples cultivated. However, it was currently being used by Xiao Guan and the others. Unlike the open-air martial arts practice field, the hall was filled with weapons. There were sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, whips, staffs, and other commonly used weapons. There were dozens of weapons of each type. In the hall, other than Xiao Guan, Xiao Jihan, Xiao Jishan, and the other disciples who were participating in the Cloud State martial arts competition, there were also 10 inner disciples. These 10 inner disciples were all in their 20s. There were 7 males and 3 females. They were the most outstanding disciples of the Xiao family and had participated in the Cloud State martial arts competition. They were the sparring partners that Xiao Guan had specially arranged for Xiao Jihan and the others. Boom boom boom, clang clang clang. When Chen Hao arrived at the inner courtyard martial arts hall, Xiao Jihan, Xiao Jishan, and the others were each sparring with an inner disciple. Sabers and swords flashed as they exchanged blows. The majestic elemental energy waves and the cheers of the crowd made Chen Hao's blood boil and his hands itch. It was really itchy. After training hard for 4 months in the demonic Cloud Mountain Range, other than the time when he challenged Xiao Shiqing, he had not fought to his heart's content. It would be strange if his hands were not itchy. Chapter 41. Shoo! Lower your voice. Otherwise, if a certain beast hears you, you'll be scared witless and lose the chance to fight to the death. Chen Hao seemed to be intentionally lowering his voice, but his voice was still loud enough to be heard. His handsome face, slightly curved lips, and faint smile, coupled with his words, made Xiao Mei, Xiao Jishan, and the others feel as if their stomachs were cramping. Especially Xiao Jishan, who had known Chen Hao since the beginning. He deeply felt that Chen Hao had changed too much in the short span of 10 days. The young man who was once simple, persistent, and knew how to endure but was also full of pride and bloodthirst, after getting along with Sister Mei for more than 10 days, actually said something that made people laugh but was also arrogant and awe-inspiring. Xiao Jihan, who was walking in front, gritted his teeth in anger. His veins were bulging and his fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. However, he forcefully suppressed his anger. He's only a grade 3 martial master. What do I, Xiao Jihan, have to fear? At the same level, how can Xiao Mei's talent and combat strength compare to mine? I've already reached the peak of a grade 7 martial master. During the battle, I'll definitely advance to a grade 8 martial master or even a grade 9 martial master. He'll be scared witless. Does he really think that I haven't improved in the past 20 days? I'll let this bastard be proud for now. When I erupt with my true strength, I'd like to see who'll be scared witless. Endure, endure, endure. Endure, endure, endure. I, Xiao Jihan, will ruthlessly trample this bastard under my feet in the battle to the death. I'll use my talent and my absolute strength to blind Xiao Guan, Xiao Mei, and all of your dog eyes. I'll let you know that I, Xiao Jihan, am not someone that a clown like Chen Hao can compare to. In the past 20 days of special training, Xiao Jihan had always been on the verge of exploding. In the past, when had he not been in existence that everyone revolved around? In the past 20 days, the glory that should have belonged to him had been completely occupied by Chen Hao. Under the guidance of Xiao Jishan, Xiao Jifei, Xiao Mei, Xiao Feng and a few other sparring partners, the 10 disciples who had obtained the qualification to participate in the Yun State martial gathering were mostly chatting and laughing with Chen Hao. Xiao Jihan gritted his teeth as he slowly suppressed the anger in his heart. He immediately calmed himself down and ignored Chen Hao and the others, and he seemed to have become an isolated existence. Even head instructor Xiao Guan, who was famous for his coldness towards Chen Hao, paid a lot of attention to him. This strong contrast made Xiao Jihan hate everyone to the core. He wanted to prove himself in the near future, in the Cloud Prefecture martial meet, in the life and death battle. The group of people moved forward at a steady pace. After an hour, the familiar Taiping town came into Chen Hao's sight. For half a year, although Taiping town was only half an hour's walk away from the Xiao family, the rules of the Xiao family forbade any new disciples from going out without permission. Except for the time when he went to the Demon Cloud Mountain, Chen Hao hadn't even stepped out of the gate of the Xiao family, let alone go home to see his parents, younger siblings, and butt-face. Looking at the familiar Taiping town from afar, Chen Hao, who was walking in the group, was inexplicably excited. Especially when he saw the bustling crowd on both sides of the street at the entrance of the town, his eyes shone brightly. With his extraordinary eyesight, he saw the familiar figure standing in the front at a glance, a trace of a smile and excitement that Xiao Mei, Xiao Jishan, and the others had never seen before appeared on Chen Hao's handsome face. In the past, the disciples of the Xiao family would pass by Taiping town before the Yun State martial gathering. At this time, Taiping town, which was created by the Xiao family and was protected by the Xiao family, would be like a festival. Almost everyone in the town would come out to see them off. On both sides of the street, all kinds of delicious food and wine would be placed to send their blessings and expectations. The disciples of the Xiao family who passed by would be praised and envied by everyone. If the children of the families in the town were in the group, they would be congratulated and praised by countless people. In the eyes of these ordinary people, this was an unparalleled honor. Brother, when Chen Hao and the others were dozens of meters away from the entrance of the town, they finally recognized his younger brother and sister in the crowd. Then they shouted in a childish voice, full of surprise. His younger brother and sister, who were not even 8 years old, were like two cheerful birds, running towards Chen Hao at their fastest speed. Looking at his younger brother and sister's clothes and their cute rosy cheeks, Chen Hao smiled. Even though he was no longer the Chen Hao of the past, this warmth, this longing, and this pure familial love were the most precious things in Chen Hao's heart. Whether it was the past him or the past madman Li Yuan, they were all like this. It was as if the softest thing in his heart had been touched. Chen Hao's tenacious nerves were a little unable to control his feelings. Suddenly, the beautiful and cute little sister, who was like a butterfly, let out a cry of surprise. Perhaps because she was running too fast, she staggered and flew forward. Xiao Ding was very clear that these two children were Chen Hao's family. Therefore, when they ran over, he had already turned around to look at Chen Hao. At this moment, when he heard the little girl's cry of surprise, he immediately turned around and attacked without hesitation, but with just a turn, Xiao Ding, who was already half a step into the martial emperor realm, was shocked to find that someone was even faster than him. A dazzling fiery red light instantly transformed into a gust of wind and arrived in front of the little girl at an astonishing speed. But what made everyone even more shocked was that the moment the pure and valiant origin energy arrived in front of the little girl, it actually became incomparably gentle. Lightly, it supported the little girl's body, like a gentle big hand. Before the crowd could be shocked for too long, Chen Hao was already like a cheetah. With a swoosh, he had already crossed the distance of several feet. Using his exquisite control of Yuan power, Chen Hao had actually rushed to his little sister's side in that short moment. He hugged his little sister in his arms. Brother! Chen Hao's beautiful little face did not seem to realize the danger she was in. She only stared at her brother who had suddenly carried her in his arms with her adorable eyes. Her tender little face was brimming with excitement and joy as she tightly hugged Chen Hao's neck. Brother! Chen Nan, who had rushed over, stopped with a face full of admiration, envy, and excitement. She turned around and pounced onto Chen Hao. As if she wanted to climb a tree, she wanted to climb into Chen Hao's arms. "Brother, hug Nan Nan. Brother, you're so amazing!" Xiao Ding stopped. Everyone in the Xiao clan stared blankly at Chen Hao. This was just an insignificant interlude, but Chen Hao's exquisite control of Yuan power and astonishing speed had imperceptibly shocked everyone. Including Xiao Ding, Xiao Bo, and Xiao Guan, all felt their hearts tremble. How could a martial master, and an inferior martial master at that, possess such powerful control of Yuan power? Xiao Jihan, who was at the peak of Grade 7 martial master, and would be able to break through to Grade 8 martial master in a few days, was definitely unable to do so. This had truly blinded Xiao Jihan's dog eyes. Seeing Chen Hao being intimate with his younger brother and sister, a trace of extreme ruthlessness flashed across Xiao Jihan's eyes. There were some things that were absolutely forbidden in the world of martial artists. However, the intense hatred he had for Chen Hao nearly drove Xiao Jihan crazy. Xiao Jihan did not know that although the trace of ruthlessness that flashed across his eyes was quickly concealed, Xiao Ding, who was standing in front of him, had keenly felt the change in Xiao Jihan's aura. With a slight glance, he had a panoramic view of Xiao Jihan's gaze. Regarding Xiao Jihan, when Elder Xiao made his decision, Xiao Ding still felt a trace of pity. After all, Xiao Jihan had been the focus of the Xiao clan's nurturing for the past 3 years. But now, Xiao Jihan's ruthless gaze had finally caused the trace of pity in Xiao Ding's heart to vanish. "Go on, talk to your family. Don't delay for too long, quickly catch up with the group." Xiao Ding waved his hand with a trace of a smile on his face as he spoke to Chen Hao. "Thank you, Patriarch." Father, Mother Chen Hao carried his younger sister in one hand and his younger brother in the other. His face was filled with unconcealable joy and excitement. Under the envious gazes of many people in Taiping Town, he walked to his parents and family and bowed to them. Tianxi, his mother, who was originally extremely haggard, now had a rosy complexion, as if she had become many years younger. Her voice was trembling as she hurriedly bent down to help her son, whom she had not seen for half a year, up. Her kind eyes glistened with sparkling tears as she carefully sized up Chen Hao. Her hands trembled slightly as she caressed her son's face. What made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that although his father was sitting in a brand new wheelchair and looked the same as before, Chen Hao's sharp intuition told him that his father's aura was like that of a completely different person. This was especially so when his father looked at him silently with a flash of light in his eyes. "Father, go ahead. You don't need to worry about our family. The Xiao family has given us a lot. We are all fine now. A real man should know how to repay kindness. You should cultivate hard to repay the kindness of the Xiao family. When you have time, come back once in a while to visit your mother and younger brother and sister. They talk about you every day, which is very annoying." "I understand," Chen Hao said in a low voice. He did not say anything else. In the past, he was not sensible enough to pay attention to some problems. But now, seeing his father again, Chen Hao thought a lot in an instant. His father had never mentioned anything about his past in front of his son. The only thing he knew was that his mother had saved his father. Then they got together and married. Later, they had a younger brother and a younger sister. "Go ahead, okay. Mother, why didn't Buttface and Auntie come?" Chen Hao finally had time to ask. Brother Buttface has become a disciple of the Li family," Chen Nan said first. "A disciple of the Li family? Which Li family?" Chen Hao suddenly asked, a little surprised. "P.S. Collect. Brothers and sisters who have finished reading this, please click to collect and recommend it. It is very, very much needed. Thank you very, very much, please." Chapter 42. Please collect, recommend, thank you. After you joined the Xiao family, Buttface seemed to have gone crazy. That lad trains himself every day, and no one can stop him. No matter what, he wants to take part in the Shao family's test in 3 years. But 3 years is too long. Chen Hai frowned and stared at his son with bright eyes. After a short pause, he continued, "The Li family is also a martial arts aristocratic family in Yunzhou County. Although it is not as powerful as the 4 great families, it is not weak. You should be able to see the Yunzhou martial arts competition." "Well, you should go now, they are already far away," Chen Hai said. "Okay." Chen Hao nodded. "Brother, Xiao Yu doesn't want you to go." Chen Yu suddenly threw herself into Chen Hao's arms and said with tears streaming down her little face, "Good girl, Xiao Yu, I will come back. Don't cry. Look at Xiao Nan, he is not crying. I am a man. I will become a martial artist like you. I will not cry. Xiao Yu, let go of me," Chen Nan said like a little adult, but his eyes were filled with tears. Everyone could see that he was just holding back his tears. Chen Hao looked at his younger brother and revealed a wisp of a light smile on the corners of his mouth. He lightly patted Chen Nan's head before putting his younger sister down, and then he bowed deeply to his parents before resolutely turning around and leaving swiftly without looking back. "Hee. Junior brother, you can cry too?" What made Chen Hao feel incomparably awkward was that he hadn't walked far when Xiao Mei's sexy personal instructor flashed in front of him and said with a charming smile on her charming face, "Who is crying? It is Sand." Chen Hao rubbed his eyes gloomily and said, "Why are you waiting for me? I am your personal instructor, shouldn't I be waiting for you?" Xiao Mei raised her eyebrows and asked. After a short pause, she said, "Hee, I just asked someone to do a small thing. The family head really cares about you. What do you mean?" Xiao Mei suddenly mentioned the family head, which made Chen Hao a little confused. "Nothing, you will know when the time comes. Hurry up. Junior brother, your brother and sister are so cute. You must have been so cute when you were a child, right? Gossip. Senior sister, you're so good to me. Aren't you afraid that senior brother Xiao Feng will be jealous? Senior sister, what does it have to do with him who I treat well? This is the second time. If you say it again in the future, I won't forgive you. Besides, you're just a little brat. Who would be jealous of you?" As the two of them spoke, they slightly gathered their essence force and quickly chased after the Shao clan's group. Following the arrival of the Cloud Prefecture martial gathering, the flow of visitors to the Cloud Prefecture city had reached its peak in the past few days. Within a radius of a few hundred miles, many powers had entered the Cloud Prefecture city one after another. Inns of all sizes were packed with people. Even some of the houses were temporarily rented by some rich or noble people who came to watch. The Cloud State Martial Gathering was the grandest event of the year in the entire Cloud State County. There were more than 100 forces participating. Other than the participating forces who could bring a certain number of disciples into the Yunzhou martial arts arena, ordinary people had to buy expensive tickets to be qualified to enter the arena. Ordinary people who didn't have money could only watch from afar under the lead of Xiao Ding, Xiao Bo, and Xiao Guan. The Shao clan's disciples didn't stop. Finally, in the evening, the tall city walls and magnificent city gates appeared before everyone's eyes. The crowd didn't have any obstructions. Under the respectful gazes of the city guards, they directly entered the Cloud State City. On the bustling streets, people came and went. The appearance of the Shao clan's group attracted countless people's attention and discussions. What made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that he actually heard his name among the discussions. That should be the young master of the Dongfang clan, Xiao Jihan, right? I heard that he only used half a year to advance from a 7th grade martial warrior to a 7th grade martial master. Among the disciples who signed up for the martial gathering, he is one of the strongest contenders for the champion. His odds are the same as the Mo clan's Mo Yui and the Sima clan's Sima Jianchen. He is second only to the Haolian clan's Haolian Wuzi and Haolian Iching. He's only 16 years old. The Shao clan can be considered to have produced a super genius. Shao Jihan is indeed a super genius. However, it's more or less due to the support of the Dongfang clan's excessive amount of spiritual herbs. The other disciple of the Shao clan is the real genius. Do you see that very young and handsome youth behind Shao Jihan? His name is Shao Xianghao and he's not even 13 years old. He's the youngest disciple who signed up this time. He's a disciple of the Shao clan with the Xiang in his name. I heard that he's already a second-grade martial master after cultivating for half a year. It can't be. You don't know? I heard it from the Haolian clan's disciple in the tavern. He's a rare genius in our Cloud State County. However, it's a pity. A pity? What's a pity? I heard that the Shao clan's patriarch's daughter, Shao Xianghao, and the Dongfang clan's young master, Shao Jihan, somehow agreed to a life-and-death battle. That's a life-and-death battle. How could that Shao Xianghao agree? I don't know. In any case, the news is accurate. Furthermore, the Shao clan's patriarch tried to mediate but failed. It's really a pity. There were actually quite a number of such discussions, causing Chen Hao to be shocked in his heart. No matter what, he didn't expect the news to spread so quickly. He also didn't expect that he would become a celebrity the moment he arrived in Cloud State County. The youngest contestant, a true genius rarely seen in Yunzhou County. This hat is really big. I was already low-key enough, but I didn't expect that I was still too high profile. Chen Hao shrugged, and the corner of his mouth revealed a helpless and bitter smile. Why? Are you surprised? It had to be said that Xiao Mei, as his personal instructor, was too dutiful. Chen Hao's every move seemed to be unable to escape her fiery eyes. She seemed to be paying attention to Chen Hao at all times. Not really. If we can find out about the situation of the various major powers, others will naturally have their own channels to find out about us. It's just that the news spread too quickly. Furthermore, it's very gossipy. Gossipy? What does gossipy mean? That's just nonsense, really? What they said seems to be the truth. Truth? Senior sister, how could I possibly have a life-and-death battle with Shao Jihan because of a little girl? What I mean is that this has nothing to do with senior sister Ji Yen. As for whether a certain beast has anything to do with it, that's his business. If it's not because of Ji Yen, then it's because a certain beast is trying to suppress you. You're going to have a life-and-death battle with him? Xiao Mei asked in disbelief. Please, senior sister, I'm only a little over 12 years old. I haven't even experienced love. I Chen, Shao Xianghao, am not someone who can be suppressed by anyone. A kind person will be bullied, and a kind horse will be ridden. If he wants to kick me out of the Shao family, then I want him dead. Chen Hao, who was originally speaking in a joking tone, couldn't help but emit a cold glint in his eyes as he spoke towards the end. This made Xiao Mei a little surprised. The more she interacted with Chen Hao, the more Xiao Mei realized that there was something about Chen Hao that didn't match his age. Although the two of them were getting closer and closer, and Chen Hao was usually very easygoing, Xiao Mei could feel that Chen Hao had an untamed and unyielding nature that was hidden in his bones. Xiao Mei couldn't figure out what a 13-year-old youth had gone through to have such a temperament that completely surpassed his peers. Just as Xiao Ding was leading the group towards the Shao family's encampment in Cloud State City, a large group of people walked towards them in a grandiose manner. Wherever they passed, the crowd would quickly disperse. What was different from the Shao family was that the crowd that had dispersed seemed to be very fearful. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly, let alone talk. It's the Sima family. The one in the middle of the three people at the front is the head of the Sima family, Sima Jun. The other two are their elders. The one in the middle at the back is a strong contender for the champion of the Cloud State martial meet, Sima Jianyun. Xiao Mei whispered in Chen Hao's ear. Chen Hao nodded and looked over. The head of the Sima family was about the same age as Xiao Ding. He looked like a door god with a ferocious face. He emitted a cold and unyielding aura. With just a glance, it was clear that this person was a vicious and merciless person who killed without batting an eyelid. Chen Hao glanced at him, then shifted his gaze to Sima Jianyun. At the same time, Xiao Jihan also looked at Sima Jianyun. This was the opponent they were likely to meet. As if sensing the attention of the two, Sima Jianyun, who looked exactly like Sima Zhen, glanced at Xiao Jihan and revealed a trace of disdain. He actually locked his gaze on Chen Hao. However, his gaze didn't seem like he was looking at an opponent, but rather curiosity. "Oh, isn't this the head of the Xiao family, Xiao Ding? Long time no see. I heard that 2 geniuses have appeared in your Xiao family. How rare. You finally have a slight chance of retaining the title of one of the 4 great families. Oh, I also heard that your 2 geniuses are going to have a life and death battle? How fun. I'm really curious if you, the head of the family, will go against the spirit of a cultivator in order to protect the 2 geniuses. Haha. Don't worry, Sima Zhen. My Xiao family won't be like a certain family, who relied on being a certain family's dog to bite people everywhere to become one of the 4 great families. We can't afford to lose face like that." Xiao Ding looked at the Sima family that was walking towards them. His expression was neither warm nor angry, but the words he said hit the nail on the head and pierced the Sima family's sore spot. "You," Xiao Ding smiled faintly and calmly brushed past the furious Sima Zhen. "Xiao Ding, don't think that no one will dare to touch your Xiao family just because that old man is here. I want to see how long you can live." Sima Zhen turned around and roared at Xiao Ding's back. "You won't see it. Before I die, you'll definitely be in the coffin," Xiao Ding said without turning his head. His tone was still neither warm nor angry. But the more it was so, the greater the lethality. It was completely undisguised disregard. P.S. Thanks to passionate love Xiao Feng sent drizzle, Chuan Liang Wuzi, watermelon skin N0, reminiscing Xiao Yi, fish that can't really swim, and Scarlet Samsara for their donations and support. Thank you. Please recommend. Chapter 43. Although Cloud State City was only a county town, it occupied a vast area that exceeded Chen Hao's imagination. It was not inferior to the metropolises on Earth. The only difference was that there were no tall buildings with tens or hundreds of floors. Xiao Ding led the crowd and walked for half an hour before arriving at the Xiao clan's residence. Although the Xiao clan's headquarters was in the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, as one of the 4 great clans of Cloud State, they naturally had a residence in Cloud State City. The size of the residence was also extremely vast. After a simple welcome, Chen Hao, Xiao Jihan, and the other participating disciples went to the rooms that were specially arranged for them. Today, even Chen Hao only meditated for 4 hours before he stopped cultivating. Instead, he entered a rare state of sleep. Ever since the demonic Cloud Mountain range, Chen Hao had not truly slept for a day. This sleep was very sweet. It was only until the next morning when Xiao Mei knocked on the door that he woke up with a lingering desire. The Xiao clan has arrived. When Xiao Ding led the Xiao clan disciples to the entrance of the martial arts arena that was incomparably huge, with a radius of nearly 1,000 meters, the guards guarding the entrance emitted a valiant aura. Instantly, the energy in their dantian surged, and their vigorous voices reverberated. What shocked Chen Hao and the Xiao clan disciples was that the huge martial arts arena was actually filled with a sea of people. In the middle of the arena, there was an incomparably huge arena that stood in the middle of the arena. The spectator stands around the arena were densely packed with people. At the front of the spectator stands, banners fluttered in the wind. They were all disciples in the uniform of the various major powers. Xiao clan head, this way please. An expert guard from the city lord's residence said respectfully. After he finished speaking, he led the Shao clan disciples to the seats that were arranged for them. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, the Shao clan disciples were all slightly excited. Especially the Xiong generation disciples who had never seen the Cloud State martial gathering, their hearts surged with passion. They secretly made up their minds to cultivate diligently and strive for the day that they would participate in the Cloud State martial gathering as participants and not as spectators. Shao clan head, this is the seat of your Shao clan. After more than 10 minutes, the city lord's residence guard led Shao Ding and the rest to the seats where the Shao clan's banner was erected. And thank you. You're welcome. Patriarch Shao, 6th elder, please take a seat on the rostrum. Okay, we'll go in a bit. Shao Ding glanced at the grandstand allocated to the Shao family with a faint smile on his face. His eyes imperceptibly glanced at Di Ling Yen, who was already seated on the grandstand, and cupped his fists in satisfaction. Okay. Then I'll take my leave first. After Shao Ding gave a few simple instructions to everyone, he and 6th elder Shao Bo quickly went to the rostrum at the edge of the central main arena and sat down. As one of the 4 great clans, they had 2 spots in the Cloud State's Martial Meets Arbitration Committee. Shao Ding, Helian clan, Mo clan, and Sima clan's clan heads were respectively appointed as the vice team leaders of the arbitration group. The Cloud State City's city lord, Li Ran, was appointed as the team leader. The Shao clan's results in the Cloud State martial meet had been poor for many years. Although a starving camel was still bigger than a horse, there had to be someone who admitted that the camel was not dead. And now, the position of the Shao clan's disciples was enough to tell everyone that in the eyes of the city lord's mansion, the Shao clan was still one of the 4 great clans, one of the 4 great powers of the Cloud Prefecture. However, whether or not they would be able to convince the masses was still unknown. Dong. 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 At the end of the 7 in the morning, at 9 in the morning, the melodious sound of a bell rang out. The Cloud State martial meet that everyone had been waiting for was finally about to begin. Right at this moment, a figure slowly rose from the center of the rostrum, as if he was floating in the air. But what was strange was that there were no fluctuations of yuan power around him. Just like that, accompanied by the melodious sound of the bell, he slowly descended onto the main arena. At this moment, the originally noisy venue suddenly quieted down. Everyone's gazes were fixed on that celestial-like figure. This was an old man with white hair and a white beard, but a youthful complexion. His entire body emitted a scholarly aura. If it wasn't for the fact that they personally saw the old man displaying the ability to float in the air that ordinary people were unable to do, no one would have known that this was an expert. Because there was indeed no fluctuation of yuan power on the old man's body. This senior is the City Lord's mansion's City Lord, Senior Li Ran. His cultivation is even stronger than the old ancestors by 30%. When the City Lord's mansion's City Lord Li Ran began to announce the list of factions participating in this year's Cloud State martial meet and the rules of the competition, Xiao Mei lowered her voice and whispered into Chen Hao's ear. Isn't it strange that he can float in the air without any fluctuation of yuan power? That's right. Chen Hao was slightly stunned. He didn't sense any fluctuation of yuan power, but Chen Hao's innately sharp intuition had sensed another type of energy that was completely different from yuan power. It was like a cool breeze, formless and formless, but it gently lifted the old man's body. However, after hearing Xiao Mei's words, Chen Hao didn't explain it clearly. Senior Li Ran is a type of cultivator that is completely different from martial artists. In our entire Zhen Yuan kingdom, he is an extremely rare existence. What is that? Intent. Intent? Intent and martial artists are 2 completely different types of cultivation. Martial artists refine their physical body and increase their yuan power, while intent cultivators refine their thoughts and increase their mental strength. It is also known as intent cultivation. Compared to martial artists, intent cultivators have a much harder time, especially in the early stages. They can't fight against martial artists at all. However, as their mental strength increases in the later stages, they will have even more mystical abilities than martial artists. Of course, this doesn't mean that martial artists are weak. These two types of cultivation actually lead to the same goal. Once you advance to the legendary martial saint realm, there isn't much difference. That means. Chen Hao frowned slightly. After pondering for a while, he said, intent cultivators also need to refine their physical body and condense their yuan power. Martial artists also need to refine their thoughts and increase their mental strength. Advancing to martial saint is the fusion of these two completely different types of energy, right? So smart. After martial artists step into martial ancestor, they will mainly refine their thoughts. On the other hand, intent cultivators, after stepping into intent sect, will mainly refine their physical body. The classification of intent cultivators is the same as martial artists, except that the word martial has become intent. Of course, although different paths lead to the same goal, there are still some differences due to the difference in their main cultivation. I heard this from my grandfather. Perhaps one day you will truly understand it. Xiao Mei's charming face revealed a slight smile as she whispered into Chen Hao's ear. The flash of sadness in her eyes did not escape Chen Hao's eyes. Chen Hao knew that Xiao Mei had only advanced to 9th grade martial master at the age of 22 and became an inner disciple of the Xiao clan. With this kind of aptitude, it was impossible for her to advance to 9th grade martial king according to the conventional rules, not to mention the martial saint realm, which was 2 grades higher than martial king. Senior sister, you seem to be very discouraged? I really don't understand. What does cultivation have to do with age? Why is it that being unable to advance to 9th grade martial master at the age of 20 can determine a person's lifetime achievement? This is the most absurd thing in the world. This is simply a self-imposed shackle on one's soul. It's pure nonsense. What made Xiao Mei flabbergasted was that Chen Hao's eyes were shining as he stared at her. He lowered his voice, but his words left no room for doubt. Chen Hao's words caused Xiao Mei's heart to tremble slightly, but she immediately shook her head sadly and said, "This is already the law of the martial world that has been summed up by countless generations of ancestors. Junior brother, I've already thought it through. It's nothing, senior sister, let me ask you. Do you still have the confidence and passion you had when you were 20 years old? Do you still have the courage to advance before you were 20 years old? Do you still crazily cultivate day and night for the sake of breaking through?" Chen Hao suddenly asked a string of questions, each of which knocked into the depths of Xiao Mei's heart. "I'm certain that you don't." Chen Hao did not allow Xiao Mei to answer and said directly, "Listen to me. Don't care about that bullshit law. As long as you can break through this shackle, I believe that you will definitely surpass yourself. Human life is in your own hands, not up to the heavens. If you treat that law as destiny, you'll be cutting off your own path forward. It's really laughable. I don't know who came up with this law, but he really deserves to die. Although I don't know much about it, you can go look it up. I believe that there are definitely people, and many people, who are not restricted by this law." Under Chen Hao's repeated lectures, Xiao Mei's charming little face actually started to glow red. She muttered to herself for a while and said, "There's no need to look it up. There are indeed people who didn't advance to 9th grade martial master before they were 20 years old, but later became martial emperors. These people, without exception, are all people that martial artists take delight in talking about. Junior brother, is what you said true? If there are people who can do it, then you can do it. You don't even have this much confidence?" At this moment, Chen Hao, this little brat, seemed to have become Xiao Mei's personal instructor. He had the appearance of a disciple as he spoke. "Good. Senior sister knows what to do." Xiao Mei bit her lips, her eyes shining with a trace of determination as she spoke. Hellion clan, Mo clan, Sima clan, and Shao clan, disciples of the four great clans, please step onto the stage and draw lots. When Chen Hao and Xiao Mei's conversation came to an end, Li Ran's short opening speech had also just finished, and he directly began to draw lots before the competition. The rules of the Cloud Region Martial Gathering had already been established as an unchanging rule. All the participating disciples would be divided into 10 groups. The first place of each group would advance to the top 10. The disciples of each faction would draw lots to determine their group. This way they could completely avoid facing each other in the group matches and also maximize the strength of each faction. Boom, 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 just as the city lord's words fell, the participating disciples of the four great clans all activated their origin power, and each of their figures rapidly flew towards the main stage. The disciples of the four great clans were, without a doubt, the most outstanding contestants in every Cloud Region martial gathering. This was their first appearance. Although it wasn't a battle, it was actually a secret competition. In almost an instant, the gazes of the tens of thousands of spectators gathered on each of the young but powerful figures. Chapter 44. 4 members of the arbitration team each carried a pitch-black box to the main arena. In order to prevent the strong from meeting each other in the group matches, the arbitration team will follow the usual rules and assign the 10 disciples with the highest cultivation levels to the 10 groups. I'm sure all of you know the rules of the draw. The disciple whose name I call will draw a group number from the box in his house. Yes. The 40 disciples of the 4 great clans replied in unison. The 2 grade 8 martial masters from the Haolian clan, Haolian Iching and Haolian Wuzi, are in the top 10. As soon as Li Ran finished speaking, the spectators, led by the Haolian family's disciples, burst into enthusiastic applause and praise. The fact that the Haolian clan could be the leader of the 4 great clans for such a long time showed that they had the capital and strength to back it up. Among all the participating disciples, the highest cultivation level was a grade 8 martial master, and there were only 2 of them. However, both of them were from the Haolian clan. With such strength, the other powers couldn't compare to them. Haolian Iching was the son of the Haolian clan's patriarch. His figure wasn't tall, nor was he handsome. However, his small eyes and his angular face were filled with a manly aura. At first glance, one could tell that he was a cold, determined, and arrogant person who didn't want to be inferior to others. He was engaged to Haolian Wuzi, who was known as the #1 genius beauty in the Cloud region and had countless suitors, 3 years ago, causing all of her suitors to feel powerless and powerless. Without a doubt, Haolian Iching and Haolian Wuzi were the 2 most likely to win the championship. They were also the focus of everyone's attention. The 2 of them drew their group numbers from the box specially provided for the Haolian clan. They were 3 and 7 respectively. Xiao Jihan from the Xiao clan is in the top 10 as a grade 7 martial master. After that, Xiao Jihan drew 6 from the Xiao clan's box. After that, the grade 7 martial master Moyui from the Mo clan and Sima Jianchen from the Sima clan were in the top 10. After the 5 of them finished drawing their lots, Chen Hao and the other 35 disciples from the 4 great clans who weren't in the top 10 drew their group numbers from the boxes provided by their respective clans. When Chen Hao saw the group number in his hand, he immediately furrowed his brows in a dilemma. Haolian Wuzi. Pear Mountain. This luck was worse than stepping on dog poop. Haolian Wuzi was indeed the Chen Hao of this lifetime. She was the most outstanding girl he had ever seen. She was indeed very beautiful, but this was not a wife-whipping, but an arena battle. This meant that if Chen Hao wanted to advance from the group stage, he would have to defeat Haolian Wuzi, an 8th grade martial master. Haolian Wuzi, who was even stronger than Xiao Jihan. No matter what, this was not what Chen Hao wanted to see. After all, if he could appear in a relatively weak group, he could not expose too much and advance in a low-key manner. That way, when he met Xiao Jihan, it would be the most advantageous for him. But now, the results of the drawing of lots completely destroyed Chen Hao's little plan. After knowing the result of Chen Hao's draw, Xiao Mei, Xiao Jishan, and the others felt that it was a pity, but only a little. After all, in the top 10, other than the 5 people from the 4 great clans, there were 3 other 7th-grade martial masters. In Xiao Mei and the others' opinion, these 8 people were difficult opponents for Chen Hao to defeat. The remaining 2 groups were the strongest among the 6th-grade martial masters. Although Chen Hao had a little bit of hope, it was not very big. Therefore, in their opinion, Chen Hao could only fight for a higher ranking in the group stage. At his age, as long as he could enter the top 10 in the group stage, the glory he would bring would not be inferior to the glory of any contestant winning the championship. However, unlike the others, Xiao Ding was as conflicted as Chen Hao. This was because Xiao Ding knew Chen Hao more than they did. In Xiao Ding's opinion, as long as Chen Hao did not meet Hao Lian Wuzi or Hao Lian Yiqing, he would have a chance to advance from the group stage and advance to the top 10. If he met 2 6th-grade martial masters in the 2 groups, he would be guaranteed to advance. What kind of glory would that be? But now, Chen Hao was unlucky enough to draw Hao Lian Wuzi's group, which directly shattered Xiao Ding's expectations. No matter how strong Chen Hao was, in front of an 8th-grade martial master, the gap between their realms was too big. After the 4 great clans finished drawing their lots, each group of 4 went up the stage to draw lots at the same time. When they met the top 10 contestants, they would use Hao Lian Wuzi's method of drawing lots until they reached a different group. After an hour, the drawing of lots was finally completed. The group stage officially began. This time, the number of contestants in the Yunzhou martial arts meet exceeded any of the previous times, reaching a total of 160. This was under the condition that many small contestants were eliminated. Otherwise, there would be more than 200 contestants. Each contestant had 10 contestants, a total of 1,600 contestants. Each group had 160 contestants from different groups. There was no need to draw lots for the first 2 elimination rounds of the group stage. It was directly carried out by the judges according to the preliminary ranking of the contestants. For example, the first contestant in the group would face the 81st contestant in the first elimination round. The second contestant would face the 82nd contestant, and so on. The second round would be carried out in the same way. What made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that he, who was only a 2nd-grade martial master when he signed up, was actually ranked 44th in the group. This also made Chen Hao realize the strength of the 4 great clans. It was indeed not something an ordinary power could compare to. Some of the contestants from the smaller groups were probably 2nd-grade martial masters in their group. The 10-square arena, 10 groups, under the guidance of 10 judges from the mayor's mansion, started at the same time. From weak to strong, the 80th contestant in the group versus the 160th contestant in the group. It had to be said that this kind of competition was extremely reasonable. A true powerhouse would not be buried because of bad luck. There was basically no suspense to the outcome of the first round. The gap between the realms was too obvious. In less than 4 hours, the first round of 80 matches had all ended. On average, each match did not even last 3 minutes. The first to 80th contestants had all won without exception. Moreover, all of them had won rather easily. Without any delay, the second round of the elimination round began. In the second round, Chen Hao did not have it as easy as the first round against the weak contestant. He, who was ranked 44th, was classified as a weak contestant this time. His opponent was the 4th-ranked contestant, Mo family disciple, Mo Yuxiang, a 5th-grade martial master. It was also the 4th last match of the second round. To Chen Hao, this was the most crucial match. It could also be the strongest opponent that Chen Hao would face before advancing to the top 5. After all, in this round, after the top 40 contestants were decided, The third round would be to draw lots to decide their opponent. As long as their luck was not too bad, they would not be matched against the top 4 contestants. Although this kind of competition was very scientific, in the end, it could not completely avoid the existence of luck. Mo family's Mo Yuxiang, a 5th grade martial master. Remember, the Mo family's martial techniques are known for their speed and craftiness. Speed is not too big of a problem for you. I've already told you everything that needs to be said. I believe that you will know how to deal with it. Xiao Mei, who was always by Chen Hao's side, said in a low voice when she saw that it was Chen Hao's turn to go up. Don't worry. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he stood up. When the referee called his name, his body flashed and a faint red yuan power wave flashed under his body. He nimbly jumped onto the stage. The first 36 matches were the same as the first round. There was still a huge disparity between the contestants. No one was able to create a miracle and defeat an opponent who was ranked 40 ranks higher than them. This kind of match was more like a warm-up before an exciting battle. The audience was bored watching it. However, following Chen Hao's appearance, he instantly attracted countless gazes. There was quite a bit of applause and cheers. This kind of situation had already appeared when Chen Hao went up for the first time. It couldn't be helped. Who asked Chen Hao to become a celebrity in everyone's hearts? He wasn't even 13 years old and had only cultivated for half a year to step into the ranks of martial masters. Furthermore, he had defeated a peak 2nd grade martial master in the family tournament. This was really a bit too shocking. Against the Mo family's 5th grade martial master Mo Yuxiang, no one believed that Chen Hao could win. Everyone only wanted to see the performance of this super genius Chen Hao. Hong, when the referee straightforwardly announced the start of the match, Mo Yuxiang stirred up the yuan power in his dantian. In an instant, a majestic and vigorous yuan power wave spread out. A fiery red protective qi instantly condensed on his body. What vigorous yuan power! The audience near the stage couldn't help but exclaim. Mo Yuxiang's face was filled with pride. Using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. Without a doubt, this was Mo Yuxiang's current mood. To Chen Hao, even if he was a super genius, he was still a 2nd grade martial master. The gap between their realms was too big. He didn't doubt that he could finish him off in a matter of minutes. But now, he wouldn't do that. Because, at this moment, in the entire arena, perhaps 90% of the audience was paying attention to this match. How could he let go of such a flashy and eye-catching opportunity? All along, he had been living under the shadow of the Mo family's number 1 genius, Mo Yui. Cloud State City only knew of the Mo family's number 1 genius, Mo Yui, but not him, Mo Yuxiang. Furthermore, this time, he had encountered a super expert like Hao Lian Wuzi. There was no hope for him to advance from the group stage. Therefore, to be able to fight with Chen Hao, the focus of everyone's attention, was an excellent opportunity for him to display his strength. He wanted everyone to see, know, and understand that the Mo family didn't only have Mo Yui, but also him, Mo Yuxiang. Mo Yuxiang's aura crazily rose. When it rose to the peak, he looked at the still motionless and calm Chen Hao. He was slightly surprised and said, "What, you want to admit defeat? That's too disappointing." Bang! What everyone, including Mo Yuxiang, didn't expect was that Chen Hao, who hadn't even activated his protective qi, suddenly stepped on the ground without any warning. With a huge explosion, his entire person charged towards Mo Yuxiang at a terrifying speed. Without any protective qi, it was as if he had given up on all defense. There was only attack. An attack that condensed all the yuan power in his body into his palms. Hiss, hiss, the entire arena resounded with countless gasps of cold air. Even Hao Lian Wuzi, who was sitting at the front of the stage, couldn't help but slightly shrink her cold eyes. Chapter 45. Strong attacks are full of flaws. He actually dares to sacrifice his protective aura to increase his attack power. Is this little guy stupid, or does he have something to rely on? Hao Lianwu frowned slightly. Her clear and cold eyes were like the blue sky and jade sea, deep and misty. It was as if there were waves of water flowing within them as she stared at Chen Hao, who had suddenly attacked in such a way. "You're courting death!" Mo Yuxiang gave a loud cry, waving his palm and smacking out through the air. The majestic and terrifying essence energy was immediately like a roaring fire dragon, violently welcoming the Chen Hao, who did not have the slightest bit of defense. Boom! What shocked everyone was that Chen Hao did not dodge. Just as Mo Yuxiang's palm was about to reach him, he let out a low shout and suddenly slapped out with both palms. The vigorous and majestic light red yuan power was like an avalanche as it collided with Mo Yuxiang's attack. Deng deng deng! Under the violent impact, Mo Yuxiang actually retreated 3 steps before stabilizing his body. Looking at Chen Hao, who was rushing towards him at high speed, his body only seemed to slow down slightly before continuing to rush towards him. Mo Yuxiang's arrogant face revealed a trace of seriousness and extreme shock. Other than Xiao Mei and a few others, no one would have thought that Chen Hao was actually this strong. He's actually a 3rd-grade martial master? What a pure and vigorous yuan power! Hao Lianwuzi's clear eyes rippled as she stared at Chen Hao and thought to herself, I didn't think that you'd actually be promoted to a 3rd-grade martial master. You've really hidden it well. However, is this enough? After a short moment of shock, Mo Yuxiang, who was forced back by Chen Hao in one move, felt that he had lost all his face and said angrily, "Giant wave 5-fold palm." After a loud shout, Mo Yuxiang, who had put away his contempt, suddenly slapped out with his left palm, and his right palm quickly followed up. Following that, he retracted his left palm and added it to his right palm. In an instant, both of his hands seemed to have turned into an illusion. The speed was so fast that no one could see it clearly. The 5 consecutive palms were like 9 shocking giant waves. The rear waves pushed the front and the waves overlapped as they rushed towards Chen Hao. Good! Immediately, cheers came from the crowd. Especially the Mo family disciples who were watching the battle, their eyes were shining. Without a doubt, Mo Yuxiang had already cultivated the Mo family's 6th-level secret technique, overlapping waves palm, to the martial master level of perfection. Relying on his astonishing speed, the superposition of 5 palms was at least 4 to 5 times stronger than a single palm. When he saw such a powerful attack, Chen Hao's pupils constricted abruptly, and his handsome face instantly erupted with an extremely cold aura. Bang bang! 2 loud bangs erupted from beneath Chen Hao's feet. He, who was already astonishingly fast, actually sped up again in an instant. Fight! The battle intent that was hidden in Chen Hao's bones erupted without restraint. He had originally wanted to keep a low profile before meeting Xiao Jihan, but because of Hao Lian and Wu Zi, it was destined that he could no longer keep a low profile. Since then, why should he fight of the battle of Mo of fighting? Fight! He fought to his heart's content. He fought without any restraint. Few, at this moment, when Chen Hao let go of his mind and body and decided to fight to the death, an aura of disdain for the world was born from his handsome face. His resolute eyes and cold expression, coupled with his unstoppable aura, made Hao Lianwuzi widen her beautiful eyes for the first time. Facing the powerful attack of Mo Yuxiang's 6th-grade secret technique, overlapping wave palm, everyone thought that Chen Hao would choose to avoid it. However, at this moment, they suddenly felt that they had underestimated Chen Hao high. When Mo Yuxiang's terrifying attack reached his chest in the blink of an eye, Chen Hao shouted and turned his palm into a fist. Bang bang bang! A series of dense and terrifying sonic booms resounded in everyone's ears at an alarming frequency. What was out of everyone's expectations was that the crushing defeat that they had imagined did not occur. Chen Hao did not use any of his ultimate skills, and only used the most basic fist technique. However, the speed of his punches was so fast that everyone could only see a series of afterimages. Only the dense sonic booms allowed everyone to realize just how fast it was. What was even more shocking was that Chen Hao's body, which was not very tall, did not retreat after the bright light red protective aura. Instead, he advanced and approached Mo Yuxiang like a hot knife through butter. How is this possible? This scene made everyone feel that it was inconceivable, especially Mo Yuxiang, who bore the brunt of the attack. He was even more shocked. Chen Hao's light red origin energy was clearly only a third-grade martial master. However, it was so dense and pure that even he felt that he could not resist it. What made him feel even more terrified was that Chen Hao's attack speed was even faster than him, a Mo family disciple who was famous for his speed. Bang bang bang, although it took a long time to describe, in fact, it was only a flash of lightning and sparks. The two of them had begun to fight for the first time. In an instant, the terrifying sound of fists and feet colliding exploded. Under the immense pressure, Mo Yuxiang displayed the speed and strangeness of the Mo family's martial arts to the extreme. However, Chen Hao, who only knew the basic martial arts, used the simplest, most direct and most effective attack to turn something rotten into something magical and caused Mo Yuxiang's strange attack to lose any effect. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at this unbelievable scene. Even Hao Lian and Wu Zi were so shocked that they could not help but open their cherry lips. In less than 2 minutes, Chen Hao's simple, violent and direct punch, without any fancy moves, broke through Mo Yuxiang's layers of palm shadows. Bowing, twisting, and punching were done in one go. Accompanied by Chen Hao's short roar, it landed squarely on Mo Yuxiang's lower abdomen. Bang! With a dull bang, Mo Yuxiang was like a kite with a broken string. He could not even let out a scream as he flew out of the ring amidst the screams of the crowd. There was silence around the ring. Everyone stared blankly at Chen Hao, who was still maintaining his punching posture. At this moment, his fist was still surging with violent yuan qi. His teeth were still clenched and his body was trembling violently. It was as if this punch had gathered all the strength in his body. At this moment, he was still immersed in the aftertaste of that shocking punch. The referee of the city lord's residence was the first to regain his senses. With a trace of excitement, he shouted in a deep voice, "Number 44, Xiao family's Xiao Xianghao victory! Xianghao! Xianghao!" In an instant, with the Xiao family as the core, the audience quickly exploded into the strongest and most terrifying cheers since the start of the competition. Not to mention the big shots on the VIP platform, even the contestants who were fighting in the other groups looked at the seventh ring in shock. In the stands, Lil Ling Er and a few other girls jumped up in excitement. They hugged each other tightly and screamed Chen Hao's name. Xiao Jian's beautiful little face also shone with a trace of excitement. However, her brows that had been tightly knitted during this period of time were unable to completely relax. During this period of time, because of Xiao Jihan and Chen Hao, an emotion that should not have appeared prematurely appeared in her heart. As the beloved daughter of the Xiao family's patriarch and the direct disciple of Old Man Xiao, she naturally knew the decision of Old Man Xiao and her father. This decision made her feel confused, uneasy, and nervous, just like when Old Man Xiao asked her who she hoped would win. She was unable to choose. Now, she was still unable to choose. Xiao Mei's eyes were wide open. She stared unblinkingly at Chen Hao, who was slowly walking towards her. Even Hao Lian and Wu Zi, who were sitting at the front of the contestants' seats, had their eyes fixed on Chen Hao's movements. Chen Hao's face was calm and indifferent, as if he did not feel anything about the victory just now. "Senior sister, why are you looking at me like that?" After Chen Hao returned to his seat, Xiao Mei was still staring at Chen Hao. However, she did not say anything. It was fine if she looked from afar, but the more she looked at him, the more Chun Hao could not help but feel a little pain in his balls. He could not help but ask, "Don't you think you owe me an explanation?" "What explanation? What do you think?" "Keep pretending. I, your senior sister, wholeheartedly wanted to be your sparring partner. It's fine if you hide it from others, but with me." Xiao Mei curled her lips, seemingly a little angry as she said this. "Senior sister, I really did not hide anything from you. You also know that I became a Grade 3 martial master. After I became a Grade 3 martial master, we did not spar." "That's not right," Xiao Mei interrupted Chen Hao. "It was clearly not a Grade 3 martial master matter." "Alright, let's talk about it when we get back. Everyone is watching us," Chen Hao said in a low voice. Second update. It's the weekend again. As usual, there will be a third update tomorrow. Tonight at 12 o'clock, the first update will be released. In the new week, I sincerely invite all the brothers and sisters who are watching AOTN to come and support Dark Mountain. Even if it's just a click, it's fine. Please. Chapter 46. This is a new week. Friends, please help me open the next chapter and recommend it. Thank you. There was no suspense in the next 3 matches. Hao Lion Wuzi, the second and third ranked disciples all finished their matches within a minute, and the top 40 were determined. The boring matches with great disparity in strength were finally over. The referee did not waste any time. After quickly drawing lots, the matches began. Finally, when the sky was about to turn dark, the 5 rounds of elimination matches, 10 arenas and 10 groups ended one after another. Chen Hao was worried that he would meet Hao Lion Wuzi too early. The situation did not happen, and he successfully advanced to the top 5. The disciple in second place, who had just become a Grade 6 martial master, was unlucky enough to meet Hao Lion Wuzi in the top 5 and was eliminated without any suspense. It was also that battle that finally allowed Chen Hao to see how powerful Hao Lion Wuzi was. A Grade 6 martial master could not even last 3 moves against Hao Lion Wuzi. Moreover, Chen Hao was clear that if Hao Lion Wuzi wanted to, she could defeat her opponent in 1 move. After a day of competition, only Xiao Jihan and Chen Hao were left of the Xiao clan's 10 disciples. Tomorrow was the round-robin match for the top 5. After joining up with the Xiao clan's disciples, Chen Hao walked towards the Xiao clan's encampment amidst the congratulations of Xiao Jishan, Lil Ling and some other Xiao clan disciples. "Junior brother, don't think so much. Hao Lion Wuzi is indeed not someone you can fight against. A Grade 8 martial master is too strong. Your current results have already shaken the entire Cloud State City. Don't force yourself. No matter what, second place in the group shouldn't be a problem for you. After all, you've only been cultivating for half a year." Xiao Mei looked at Chen Hao, who seemed to be deep in thought and could not help but comfort him. He. Hearing Xiao Mei's words, Chen Hao's brows relaxed. He grinned and said, "Senior sister, you're thinking too much." "I'm thinking too much?" Hao Lion Wuzi is indeed very strong. However, I feel that her fan club is even stronger. With my current cultivation, I have no chance of winning. Even if I lose, it would be normal. What fan club? Xiao Mei was a little surprised. Ever since she came into contact with Chen Hao, she had heard several new terms. A fan club is also a group of supporters and admirers. Didn't you see how crazy the audience was every time she went on stage today? Let's not talk about this anymore. No matter if I win or lose, I will do my best to fight. As Chen Hao said this, he suddenly seemed to be talking to himself. Sigh, if only there were some more high-grade elixirs. Xiao Mei was surprised. Junior brother, you couldn't have comprehended the barrier again? It seems so. It's a pity that I haven't tempered my origin power enough. Otherwise, I think I would be able to quickly step into the 4th grade of Martial Master. So, don't say that I'm hiding it from you. It was only when I started fighting with Mo Yuxiang that I suddenly realized it. Chen Hao seemed to have intentionally raised his voice a little. This caused the ears of Xiao Ding and the rest, who were walking in front, to tremble, especially Xiao Jihan. When Chen Hao saw the subtle changes in the crowd, his eyes flashed with joy. This time, he wasn't talking to Xiao Jihan, but to Xiao Ding. As Chen Hao had said, Haolian Wuzi basically had no chance of winning against him now. A grade 8 martial master was much stronger than Xiao Jihan. Moreover, although no one had forced Hao Lianwu to use her true strength in today's battle, Chen Hao's sharp intuition had sensed that there seemed to be a familiar energy on Hao Lianwu's body. This feeling was very strange, but it was real. As for what kind of energy it was, Chen Hao wasn't sure. He would probably only know after he had fought and forced Hao Lianwuzi to use it. At night, a full moon hung in the sky. The clear and cold moonlight sprinkled down on the bustling Cloud State City. All the taverns, tea-houses, brothels, and other places were packed with people. Everyone was talking about today's competition with great interest. Without a doubt, Hao Lianwuzi, Hao Lian Yiqing, Xiao Xianghao, and Xiao Jihan were the names that appeared the most frequently. After Chen Hao finished his meal, he went straight to his room. He sat cross-legged on his bed, and the faint moonlight poured through the window onto his delicate and handsome face. However, he wasn't cultivating. His black eyes emitted a faint glow under the moonlight. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he seemed to be deep in thought, as if he was waiting for something. Dong dong dong. Soft knocks on the door were finally heard, just as Chen Hao had expected. A smile appeared on his face as he stood up and opened the door. "Senior sister? Is there anything?" Xiao Mei's face flashed with excitement and joy. She didn't answer Chen Hao and instead walked into the room. After closing the door, she smiled mysteriously and whispered, "Guess what I brought you?" "A what?" Chen Hao seemed to be very surprised. Spiritual medicine. 10 grade 5 medicinal pills and 3 grade 6 medicinal pills. Although Xiao Mei wanted to whet Chen Hao's appetite, time was of the essence, and she said it directly. It can't be." This time, Chen Hao was really surprised. When he came back, he intentionally said it out loud for Xiao Ding to hear. He believed that since Xiao Ding and old Xiao had chosen him, they would spare no expense to nurture him. And now, he needed it. There was no need to pretend to be virtuous. He believed that he would be able to repay this kindness 1,000 times in the future. But he didn't expect Xiao Ding to give him so much. 10 grade 5 medicinal pills were refined with 10 grade 5 spiritual medicine. 3 grade 6 medicinal pills were refined with 3 grade 6 spiritual medicine. Chen Hao had never seen a grade 5 medicinal pill before, not to mention grade 6 medicinal pills. Moreover, there were 3 of them. One had to know that the reward for the first inner disciple before the age of 20 was a grade 6 spiritual medicine, red refining fruit. Chen Hao couldn't help but be surprised. Patriarch said that as long as you need it, just say the word. He will spare no expense to help you improve. When you need it, just let me know. Xiang Hao? Although Patriarch didn't say, senior sister feels that I should tell you, what? These spiritual medicine are extremely precious to any family. These are Patriarch's savings for breaking through to Martial Emperor. Do you understand what senior sister means? I understand. Chen Hao nodded and said in a deep voice. Go to the cultivation room and cultivate. Senior sister will protect you. Xiao Mei said as she nudged Chen Hao. Okay. Chen Hao didn't say anything else and walked directly to the cultivation room. After sitting cross-legged on the mat in the middle of the cultivation room, Chen Hao carefully opened the jade bottle containing the grade 5 spiritual medicine. In his eyes, these were no longer spiritual medicine. They were old Xiao and Xiao Ding's hopes. This made Chen Hao feel a little guilty. Although he had never thought of taking it for free, his relationship with the Xiao family was still based on mutual benefit. What the Xiao family valued was his potential and future. Their current investments and good karma were all based on future returns. It was also because of this that Chern Hao intentionally said that he needed spiritual medicine. You give me the present and I give you the future. It was a matter of course. But now, Xiao Ding's generous investment made Chern Hao understand that this was beyond the scope of benefit. Taking a deep breath, Chern Hao's mind was filled with the uncontrollable excitement of seeing spiritual medicine. He had originally wanted to take out a grade 5 spiritual medicine, but he couldn't help but take out 3 and swallow them. Boom, boom, boom. The strength of a level 5 medicinal pill was revealed the moment it was swallowed into his dantian. Although refining the medicinal pill would remove most of the violent elements of the spiritual medicine, Chern Hao was only a martial master. A level 5 spiritual medicine would have a strong effect even on a martial monarch, not to mention a martial master. Moreover, Chern Hao had swallowed 3 spiritual medicine at once. Almost in an instant, violent and pure energy was released from the 3 spiritual medicine. Even with Chern Hao's strong physical body, he still felt a heart-wrenching pain, as if his dantian was about to explode. Luckily, after experiencing the terrifying pain of soul fusion, Chern Hao's endurance was relatively high. Without any hesitation, in an instant, he activated the secret of longevity and began to refine his spiritual medicine. Bearing the intense pain of his physical body that was about to explode, he focused all his attention on refining the spiritual medicine. P.S. First update, all the brothers and sisters who support Aotian, please help me log in to Qidian and click on the next chapter. Those who are still reading, please vote for Wu Shan, please. Today's third update will explode. The second update should be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Also, thanks to Chuan Liang Wuzi, Passionate Love Carrot, Chi-Mo-Mo, Wind Flower Snow Moon Clear, Emo-Ching E Weasel 22, Dancing with the Wind Purple, Xiao Tian Bai, Fish That Can't Really Swim, Feng Bi for their support. Thank you. Chapter 47. I'm putting my face in my pocket. I'm sincerely begging for recommendation tickets, member clicks, collection, tips, etc. Everything is taken care of. Wu Shan promises to marry Yuo intersection. Oh, using elemental energy to refine the body and awaken the body's potential is to refine all the cells and meridians in the body except for the brain. Once the refinement is completed, one can reach the martial emperor realm. As the violent energy from the 3 level 5 elixirs was refined, the pain that felt like his body was about to explode gradually disappeared from Chern Hao's body. At this moment, Chern Hao felt the subtle circulation of the majestic elemental energy in his body, and a trace of understanding appeared in his mind. Senior Mei's intent is to refine one's will and produce mental strength. Compared to elemental energy, mental strength is completely under the precise control of the intent and can be refined down to the smallest detail. The brain is the most mysterious and delicate part of the human body. Perhaps only under complete control of mental strength can one refine the cells in the brain and awaken the brain's potential. The reason why intent is so rare is because it requires the cultivator to be born with a certain amount of mental strength. Otherwise, it is impossible to take the first step of refinement. As for martial artists, although they are unable to use the violent elemental energy to refine the brain, after becoming a martial emperor, the meridians that run through the human brain are already connected. Through the circulation of the elemental energy in the meridians, it can naturally nourish the brain continuously until the condition to become intent is met. Then, one can begin to refine the brain. But why doesn't intent cultivate elemental energy to refine the body? Thinking of this, Chern Hao, who was still refining the elixirs, the figure of Cloud State City's governor, Li Ran, appeared in his mind. Chern Hao's senses were several times, or even dozens of times, sharper than ordinary people. He could be sure that the intent Emperor Li Ran had already begun to refine his body. However, the feeling he gave was completely different from a martial artist's body. This made Chen Hao a little puzzled. He could only temporarily put aside the doubts in his heart and once again devote himself to refining the elixirs. Vigorous and pure elemental energy flowed through the meridians of the fourth level of the long life secret, continuously refining and nourishing the meridians and the surrounding cells. Buzz! Finally, just as the 3 level 5 medicinal pills were about to be exhausted, a rumbling sound came from his dantian. Chen Hao could clearly feel that his body was vibrating at a high frequency. It was also at this moment that the pure essence energy that was flowing along his meridians suddenly increased in speed by several times. The surging and vigorous origin energy was like enormous waves that crashed against the shore, and wave after wave crashed against the barrier that Chen Hao had already comprehended. Boom! A series of explosions rang out as Chen Hao's vigorous essence force circulated crazily, causing the air in the entire cultivation room to explode and rumble unceasingly. He broke through just like that? Sitting cross-legged on Chen Hao's bed, Xiao Mei, who had stayed behind to protect Chen Hao, was suddenly awakened by the huge commotion coming from the cultivation room. Her charming eyes opened in surprise as she muttered in disbelief. Xiao Mei did not know that at this moment, on a towering tree a few meters away from Chen Hao's room, a figure let out a soft sigh of relief and muttered to himself, "It seems that the old ancestor is wise. This kid is really too abnormal. What a pity, what a pity." If the Yunzhou martial meet could be delayed for a month, even defeating Hao Lian and Wu Zi would not be impossible. This figure was Xiao Ding. Sparing no effort to help Chen Hao cultivate was what old man Xiao had instructed him to do. However, in the cultivation world, spiritual herbs were in short supply. Not to mention level 5 or level 6 spiritual herbs, even level 3 or 4 spiritual herbs were difficult to buy in the trading market. After all, this was a world of martial artists. There were as many cultivators as there were hairs on a cow. If the spiritual herbs picked could not even satisfy one's own needs, who would sell them? 3 level 6 medicinal pills and 10 level 5 medicinal pills were all Xiao Ding's reserves for breaking through to Martial Emperor. Old man Xiao said it was easy, but Xiao Ding's heart ached. Giving them to Chen Hao meant that the time needed for him to break through to Martial Emperor would be extended. However, now that he sensed Chen Hao's breakthrough, Xiao Ding suddenly felt that old man Xiao was right and that it was worth it. Just as Xiao Ding was about to leave, he was suddenly startled. He looked at a place 100 meters away from Chen Hao's courtyard. That was Xiao Jihan's residence. This kid, did he break through as well? Xiao Ding thought to himself in surprise. With a flash of his body, he transformed into a gust of wind and rapidly approached Xiao Jihan's room. At the same time, the powerful perception of someone who had 1 foot in the martial emperor realm silently spread out. Very good, Jihan, what else do you have to worry about now? There are still 5 days before the group stage ends. The round-robin competition for the top 10 can only take place 5 times a day. As long as you don't meet the 2 people from the Hao family in advance, you still have a few days to cultivate. With the help of these spirit herbs, with your talent, it's very likely that you'll be the champion. I really didn't expect your Dongfang family to be a branch of the 3 great families of our Jinyuan kingdom. However, Jihan, I'm a member of the Xiao family after all. Please tell your father that after this matter is settled, the elemental spirit cave will belong to your Dongfang family and the Xiao family will be mine. Don't worry, 6th elder. Without your nurturing over the past 3 years, I, Dongfang Han, wouldn't be where I am today. This time, I was able to obtain the help of the main family because of my cultivation and talent. My father will definitely keep his promise. However, you must be careful about this matter. You mustn't let Ji Yen know. It's been 3 years. To tell you the truth, I more or less have some true feelings for that girl. Don't worry. Alright, I'll head over first. Xiao Ding never would have imagined that he would hear such a shocking secret from inadvertently eavesdropping. It was no wonder that the Dongfang family, who should have come to visit, didn't come to participate in the Yun State martial meet. It was no wonder that with the Dongfang family's wealth and good relations with the four great families of Yun State, the Dongfang family would let Dongfang Han, who was Xiao Jihan, choose the Xiao family. Even with Xiao Ding's strong mental fortitude, he was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. One of the three great families of the Zhenyuan kingdom, the Dongfang family, Xiao Jihan's main family, the Dongfang family, was actually a branch of the Dongfang family, one of the three great families, and their target was the Xiao family's elemental spirit cave. Although he didn't know what Xiao Bo and Xiao Jihan's father were plotting, Xiao Ding obtained a lot of information from their short conversation. Xiao Ding took a deep breath and pondered for a moment with furrowed brows. Suppressing the shock in his heart, he quickly flew toward Xiao Guan's room. Xiao Guan was Xiao Ding's trusted aide. After giving Xiao Guan a few simple instructions, Xiao Ding flew out of the Xiao family's encampment as fast as lightning. There were still more than 2 hours before the start of the competition. With Xiao Ding's cultivation, it was enough for him to return to the Xiao family and return. He couldn't leave this matter to anyone else, so he had to do it personally. Why isn't the patriarch here yet? Early in the morning, when Chen Hao and the other Xiao family disciples gathered and prepared to set off, the patriarch Xiao Ding still hadn't arrived. The sixth elder frowned and asked. The patriarch said last night that his cultivation has reached a critical juncture. He told us to go on our own and that he will arrive before the competition starts, the cold-faced Xiao Guan said in a deep voice without the slightest change in his expression. Then let's set off. Ji Yan, and you disciples, the reason I brought you here to watch the competition is not for you to play. You have to observe and learn diligently in order to gain something. In the future, the Xiao family will have to rely on you youngsters. And, as long as you cultivate diligently and perform well, this elder will focus on nurturing you. Do you understand? The sixth elder said sanctimoniously with a kind smile on his face. He was in a very good mood. Although he couldn't show anything at the moment, with his status as the sixth elder, educating these youngsters and nurturing some loyal subordinates for him after he took power was no problem. Xiao Guan's face was cold, and he didn't have the slightest reaction to the sixth elder's pretense. Although he didn't know why the patriarch rushed back to the Xiao family in the middle of the night, the fact that the patriarch hid it from the sixth elder and the others and let Xiao Guan know meant that it was definitely a big matter. And it was very likely related to Xiao Jihan and the sixth elder. After all, as Xiao Ding's trusted aide, he more or less knew about Xiao Ding and old Zhao's decision, martial arts venue. When Chen Hao and the others arrived at the martial arts venue, the spectator stands were already full. Even the 10-sided arena that was used for the previous day's battle had been turned into a spectator stand and was filled with spectators. The top 5 would be in a round-robin competition. Because the difference in strength between the contestants was not large, there was a possibility that someone would be injured in every battle. Therefore, the competition couldn't be like the previous day's elimination round where there were consecutive battles. Every day, one person in each group would have a bye, so there were only 2 matches. There were 10 groups, so there were only 20 matches in total. Therefore, all the matches were concentrated in the main arena. This way, the spectators would be able to enjoy watching and not miss out on any exciting matches. Before the competition started, Xiao Ding, who was the vice leader of the arbitration team, arrived on time. As for Chen Hao, he was lucky enough to draw a bye. There were 5 people in each group, and each person would only get a bye once. When the lots were drawn tomorrow, he would be the first to draw. If he drew a bye, he would have to draw another lot. It had to be said that being the first to draw a bye was very lucky for Chen Hao. Chen Hao informed Xiao Guan and returned to the Xiao clan's encampment with Xiao Mei. Although Chun Hao also wanted to see the contestants' performance, what he needed more now was to cultivate. Last night, even though Chun Hao had successfully advanced to a rank 4 martial master, the huge pressure brought by Hao Lian Wuzi still didn't decrease. With his cultivation as a rank 4 martial master, Chun Hao still didn't have the confidence to win. Therefore, before he met Hao Lian Wuzi, he had to improve himself as quickly as possible. Only by increasing his cultivation could he truly increase his combat strength. Second update. If you have a recommendation vote, please vote for Wu Shan. Thank you. Chapter 48. Looking for members to click. Looking for recommendation tickets. Looking for favorites. My new book needs everyone's support. Please. Please. Brothers and sisters. A grade 8 martial master, Xiao Jihan from the Xiao clan, has actually advanced to a grade 8 martial master. He really hit it well. The Xiao clan has finally risen. The strength that Xiao Jihan displayed just now is probably not inferior to Hao Lian Wuzi and Hao Lian Yiqing. It's very likely that he has already advanced to a grade 8 martial master. Yes, he's really powerful. His talent is probably not inferior to Xiao Xianghao's. On the first day of the round-robin competition, Xiao Jihan became the topic of discussion in the entire venue. A peak grade 6 martial master from the Hao clan was actually blasted out of the stage by Xiao Jihan's seemingly casual palm strike, causing him to faint from serious injuries. That was a peak grade 6 martial master. Furthermore, he was a disciple of the Haolian clan who was known for their defense. It was certain that even a peak grade 7 martial master would not be able to defeat that grade 6 martial master so easily. However, Xiao Jihan had done it. That casual palm strike had truly displayed the shocking cultivation of a grade 8 martial master. Furthermore, it was definitely not something that someone who had just advanced to a grade 8 martial master could do. Chun Hao, who had left early, was at the Xiao clan's encampment. He had Xiao Mei use all her strength as a grade 9 martial master to battle with Hao Lian Wuzi for an entire day. According to Xiao Mei's estimation, although she was a grade 9 martial master, she was probably not a match for Hao Lian Wuzi. Therefore, if Chun Hao wanted to defeat Hao Lian Wuzi, he had to defeat her in her peak state. After an entire day, unfortunately, although Chun Hao gave it his all, he still lost in the end after learning from Xiao Jishan, Lil Ling and the others that Xiao Jihan had advanced to a grade 8 martial master and might not be inferior to Hao Lian Wuzi. Chun Hao became even more excited. That night, he swallowed another 3 grade 5 pills. However, it was a pity that he only managed to slightly increase his origin power through tempering. No matter how talented he was, he would not be able to comprehend the barrier between a grade 4 martial master and a grade 5 martial master in a day. A genius was a combination of 99% sweat and 1% talent. Although Chun Hao's talent was much stronger, it was not something that could be accomplished overnight. He still needed time. The morning breeze blew gently, the sun rose from the east, and the sun and moon alternated. This was an unchanging law that would never change because of people's wishes. After all, one day was too short. Chun Hao finally stepped onto the stage again and drew lots. His only hope was that he wouldn't meet Hao Lian Wuzi for the time being because he wasn't ready yet. He, who was born with pride, would never allow himself to fail. If he was given more time, he believed that he would definitely be able to do it. However, Chun Hao's good luck seemed to have come to an end. Hao Lian Wuzi. When he saw that Hao Lian Wuzi had drawn the same number as him, Chun Hao took a deep breath. His black eyes shone brightly, and his gaze intertwined with Hao Lian Wuzi's. Hiss hiss hiss. What Chun Hao and Hao Lian Wuzi did not expect was that the moment their eyes met for the first time, both of them were shocked at the same time. It was as if electric currents were born in their bodies at the same time. A very strange feeling appeared in their hearts out of nowhere. Chun Hao frowned slightly, and Hao Lian Wuzi raised her eyebrows slightly. What's going on? Hao Lian Wuzi and Chun Hao avoided each other's gaze at the same time, and each of them pondered in their hearts. It seems it's the energy in her body, humph. It's just a third-grade martial master, what do I have to fear? Hao Lian Wuzi's eyebrows relaxed. 8th grade martial master. Do I, Chun Hao, have to admit defeat? At worst. Chun Hao's eyes flashed coldly. He bit his lips lightly and secretly made up his mind. Since he had drawn the lot, he could only fight. There was no way back and he could only move forward. It's destined to cause trouble. But it's better than a man. Chun Hao's gaze swept across the audience who were staring at Hao Lian Wuzi with infatuation. His furrowed eyebrows also relaxed. He shrugged slightly and said to himself, "It's good that I can win. Why do I have to worry so much? This isn't me, Chun Hao. I'm Li Yuan. Madman Li Yuan. When did I care about what others say? Junior, Hao Lian's family is our mortal enemy. Since you can't win, remember, when the time comes, don't fight recklessly. She's not senior, and will not show mercy. As long as there's a chance, she will definitely injure you severely, or even cripple you. So, if you can't win, admit defeat immediately." "Okay," Chun Hao responded and didn't say anything more. He looked at the main arena that everyone was looking at. First round, first group, Sima Jianyun from the Sima family versus Li Shaojian from the Li family. "Contestants, please come to the arena." When the referee's voice resounded throughout the entire arena, boom, boom, 2 figures suddenly flew up from the contestants' seats and jumped onto the main arena in an instant. Li family? Isn't Buttface in the Li family? When Chun Hao heard the referee announce the contestants' names, he frowned slightly and thought to himself, it should be this Li family. Buttface was Chun Hao's best friend. It could be said that he was able to enter the Shao family largely because of Buttface's help. Without Buttface, he wouldn't have been able to participate in the Shao family's test. Without Buttface's help, he and his family would probably still be homeless. Only friends who could go through thick and thin together were true friends who could go through thick and thin together. Therefore, even though Chun Hao was no longer the Chun Hao of the past, their brotherhood hadn't changed at all. Since Buttface had also embarked on the path of cultivation, Chun Hao couldn't ignore him. Boom! Boom! The violent fluctuation of origin energy interrupted Chun Hao's thoughts. Although the fierce-looking Sima Jianyun was only 17 years old, his face, which was as fierce as his father's, made him look like he was 30 years old. However, this guy's cultivation was much better than his appearance. As the number 1 genius of the Sima family, it wasn't enough to make him look fierce. As one of the top 10 contestants, Sima Jianyun didn't even need to use his sword. He relied on his violent and vigorous origin energy to easily make his opponent admit defeat in 3 to 4 minutes of battle. Next, the 2 contestants from the second group entered the arena. The 2 of them were comparable in strength. In the end, one of them was seriously injured, while the other had minor injuries. In the third group, Hao Liani easily defeated his opponent. In the fourth group, Moue won in 2 minutes. There was basically no suspense in the top 10 groups of the 4 great families. Furthermore, they were arranged in the first group to enter the arena. Because this was a competition where the difference in strength was slightly larger, there wasn't much suspense in the outcome. Soon, it was the 6th group's turn. What surprised Chun Hao was that Xiao Jihan had won many fans in just one day. It had to be said that Xiao Jihan, who was handsome and highly talented, and whose family was the richest in Yunzhou, had imperceptibly covered him with a layer of mini-halo. It was natural for him to be sought after. When Xiao Jihan once again defeated his opponent with a casual move, it triggered the first small climax since the start of the competition. Cheers resounded throughout the entire arena. However, no matter if it was Hao Liani or Hao Liani, They all looked at Xiao Jihan with a trace of disdain. Especially Hao Liani, who looked as if he was looking at Lei Feng. Without a doubt, if he was Xiao Jihan, he would definitely not reveal that he had advanced to become a grade 8 martial master, let alone be so arrogant. The key to victory was to keep a low profile and reveal himself at the most crucial moment. However, Chen Hao expressed that he understood, especially when he saw Xiao Jihan looking at him with arrogance and disdain after he won. He understood even more. Under Chen Hao's repeated attacks, it was already commendable that this fellow could endure until now to fly into a rage. 7th round, 7th group, Hao Liani from the Hao family versus Xiao Xianghao from the Xiao family. Please enter the arena. When the referee called out Hao Liani and Chen Hao's names, the audience, who were already cheering for Xiao Jihan, instantly exploded with even more enthusiasm. Hao Liani, the #1 genius beauty in Cloud State City, resounded throughout the entire arena. Even Chen Hao, who had become a celebrity and gained the recognition of many people, was completely submerged under Hao Liani's great charm. Looking at the pairs of crazy eyes, Chen Hao actually curled up into a devilish smile at this moment. He really wanted to know if he would be drowned in the saliva of such a huge legion of fans when they saw how he fought against Hao Liani. Bang! Chen Hao stomped his feet on the ground, and his body instantly shot up into the sky like a cannonball. At the same time, a majestic battle intent spread out from his body. In contrast to Chen Hao, Hao Liani's beautiful figure was as light as a dancing fairy, landing gracefully on the arena. 4 pairs of eyes met each other. Streaks of electric sparks that no one could see or feel stimulated their bodies and mind. Both of them could see this feeling from each other's eyes. However, neither of them would say it out loud. Begin. Following the referee's shout, everyone thought that Hao Liani and Chen Hao would act like the others and immediately attack. But what made everyone feel strange was that both of them actually stared into each other's eyes with bright eyes, and their expressions were calmer than the other. Although the battle intent from both of them was rapidly rising, this scene was indeed out of everyone's expectations. Chen Hao's reaction wasn't strange. After all, Hao Liani's beautiful appearance would cause any male disciple to be stunned. But why didn't Hao Liani attack? Could it be that a beauty meeting a genius and her heart was moved? That wasn't possible. Hao Liani was already Hao Liani's fiancée. Although Chen Hao was a super genius and was exceptionally handsome, he was only a 13-year-old kid. It wasn't enough to move Hao Liani's heart, so why was that? Even Hao Liani frowned slightly when he saw this scene. You'd better admit defeat. At this moment, Hao Liani opened her red lips for the first time since the start of the competition. Her faint and ethereal voice was like the tinkling of a clear spring in people's ears. It was extremely moving. Tasting it carefully, it was like a gentle breeze and drizzle, but also like the clear spring water cleansing the heart. 3rd update. My throat is hoarse from shouting. Dear friends, can you hear that? Please give me some support. I really need it. I really need it. Thank you. I recommend a friend to recommend the new work of the world-destroying serpent, the Great Master. It's a very good book. If you're interested, please help to collect it. Thank you, it's on the direct link. Chapter 49. How Lian Wuzi's voice alone was enough to mesmerize countless young disciples. They could not help but think that if he was Chen Hao, he would definitely admit defeat. How could he have the nerve to refuse such a beautiful woman? How could he reject her? How could he reject her? Especially since Chen Hao was no match for her. How could a grade 3 martial master fight her? Although it was extremely abnormal to be able to defeat a grade 6 martial master, the difference between a grade 6 martial master and a grade 8 martial master was not small. So what if he admitted defeat? It was straightforward and no one would criticize him. Naturally, the vast majority of people thought that Chen Hao would admit defeat. However, Chen Hao's handsome and masculine face didn't have the slightest change in his expression when he heard such a beautiful voice. I might not lose. Why should I admit defeat? Chen Hao said calmly. His voice was also indifferent. However, unlike Hao Lian Wuzi, Chen Hao's voice was filled with a cold determination. It was as if he was telling everyone that the beauty in front of him, who could make any young man kneel before her, was only an opponent in his eyes. An opponent that was no different from an ordinary girl or even a man. That was all. Hao Lian Wuzi raised her eyebrows slightly. She continued to look straight at Chen Hao and said, I gave you a chance. Since you don't want it, I won't hold back. Hao Lian Wuzi had indeed given Chen Hao a chance. Of course, she was also giving herself a chance. The head of the Haolian family, Hao Lianlei, had already cautioned that as long as they met Chen Hao, they were to find an opportunity to severely injure or even kill him. The most basic requirement was to destroy his cultivation. For such a super genius, especially in the opposing Shao family, as long as he existed, he would evolve into a powerful and terrifying existence that the Haolian family could not resist. As for the life and death battle between Chen Hao and Shao Jihan, the head of the Haolian family, Hao Lianlei, felt that it was child's play. He did not doubt that even if Shao Ding went against the rules of martial arts, he would not let Chen Hao die in Shao Jihan's hands. However, Hao Lian Wuzi had asked Chen Hao to admit defeat at the very beginning, because for some unknown reason Chen Hao's calm, deep, and piercingly cold gaze and the surging battle intent emitted from his body caused her to feel danger from the depths of her heart. He could not help but blurt it out. When she said it, she regretted it a little, because if Chen Hao really admitted defeat, then how could she complete the task given to her by the patriarch? Bring it on. Isn't your Haolian clan famous for its defense? Today, I will let you experience the secret of our Shao clan's ancestor. I want to see if your Haolian clan's defense is stronger or if our Shao clan's defense is stronger. But you're a woman, so please don't mind. On the arena, there are no men or women, only opponents. Chen Hao stared at Hao Lian Wuzi without any emotion in his eyes and said coldly. However, but Chen Hao's words made everyone baffled. Even Shao Ding had a bewildered look too. When did the old ancestor have a secret that was not passed down? As the descendant of the Shao clan and the patriarch of the Shao clan, how could he not know? A secret that is not passed down. Patriarch Shao, your genius is very arrogant. Don't tell me he really thinks that a grade 3 martial master can defeat our Shao Wu? What a joke. Shao Wu hates people who do not know the immensity of heaven and earth the most. If anything happens later, don't blame our Haolian clan. Hao Lianlei stroked his long beard and said eccentrically. Something happens? Patriarch Hao, if I'm not wrong, I'm afraid it's your task? Is it? I really want to do that, but if Old Man gave it, would Shao Wu let him admit defeat? What a joke. Don't measure the heart of a gentleman with your petty heart. Your Shao clan is not even in Old Man's eyes. Hao Lianlei said disdainfully and arrogantly. Ha. Just as Shao Ding was about to explode in anger, Li Ran, who was sitting in the middle, suddenly chuckled. He waved his hand between the two and said, This battle should be very interesting. That little fellow is not simple, Li Ran's words caused the 4 patriarchs and the members of the arbitration team to be slightly shocked. Li Ran, who had a scholarly temperament and the demeanor of an immortal, was at the Intent Emperor realm. He was the undisputed #1 expert in Cloud State County. Furthermore, an Intent Emperor realm expert's senses were far beyond what a martial artist could reach. Since Li Ran had said so, it was definitely not an exaggeration. That Chen Hao definitely had some hidden strength. This caused a slight change in everyone's thinking. Originally, they had the same thoughts as Hao Lianlei. They thought that Chen Hao was the kind of genius who was arrogant and did not know how to endure. Otherwise, he would not have agreed to a life-and-death battle with Xiao Jihan, an opponent who completely surpassed him. Even more so, he would not have fearlessly challenged Hao Lianwu, who was even stronger than Xiao Jihan, despite knowing the enmity between the Haolian clan and the Xiao clan. Hiss! Just as the big shots of the arbitration team were shocked, Chen Hao and Hao Lianwu's mutual appreciation finally ended. After Hao Lianwu's body flashed with a dazzling and majestic protective aura, there was no violent roar. Her entire body was like a gust of wind, and in a flash she floated in front of Chen Hao. Thousand Phantom Palm. Chen Hao's eyes suddenly narrowed. Thousand Phantom Palm was a level 7 secret technique. It was much stronger than the level 6 secret technique of the Mo clan, Overlapping Waves Palm. The circulation of the elemental energy in the meridians was extremely complicated. Without excellent aptitude, it was impossible to successfully cultivate it. At the highest level, this secret technique could increase one's attack power by 7 times. However, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was the 4 words, Thousand Phantom Palm. When the palm struck out, there were thousands of changes. Layers of palm shadows, illusory and real, made it impossible for the opponent to determine which palm was the real one. Looking at Chen Hao, who was completely enveloped by Hao Lianwu's palm shadows, Xiao Ding suddenly frowned. Even he did not expect that Hao Lianwu, who was only a martial master, could actually cultivate the Thousand Phantom Palm, which could only be cultivated by a martial emperor. What made Xiao Ding even more worried was that although Chen Hao was in a fighting posture, he did not activate his protective aura. Could it be that in the face of Hao Lianwu, a level 8 martial master, this kid wanted to use violence to curb violence like he did to Mo Yuxiang? Not bad. At the same time, Li Ran, who was beside him, unexpectedly spoke again. Just as the crowd was still trying to figure out who Li Ran was referring to, Chen Hao in the arena moved the moment the palm shadows were about to reach him. Luck. Silent like a virgin, moving like a fleeing rabbit. Facing Hao Lianwu's layers of palm shadows and huge pressure, Chen Hao's body did not move at all. Only his contracted pupils allowed the crowd to see that Chen Hao was trying to catch Hao Lianwu's real attack. And now, he moved. Relying on his natural advantage of speed, he moved as fast as lightning. No one understood why Chen Hao did not dodge at the beginning and allowed Hao Lianwu's palm shadows to envelop him. Could it be that he could really lock onto the real killing move of Hao Lianwu's palm shadows? Ancient Chinese martial arts were extensive and profound. The highest level of defense was offense. However, that was under the situation of the same realm. When facing an opponent who was completely beyond one's realm, one could only use true defense. The ancient martial arts lost art, Golden Snake Coiling Hand, was the best defensive lost art in ancient Chinese martial arts that used the weak to suppress the strong. Lock was the highest level of the Golden Snake Coiling Hand. Lock, lock, lock. Lock onto the attack, lock onto the opponent, lock onto everything. This was Chen Hao's only way to deal with Hao Lianwu. It was also the method that Chen Hao had been considering whether to use after he and Hao Lianwu were assigned to the same group. These 2 days, he desperately tried to raise his realm. It was nothing more than wanting to rely on his real strength to defeat Hao Lianwu. However, the time was too short. Now, he could only choose this method. Moreover, Chen Hao believed that success or failure depended on the first move. As long as he could successfully lock onto Hao Lianwu with the first move, he would have the hope of winning. Because Hao Lianwu was a woman and she was still a virgin. Pa, 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 boom, 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 the crisp sound of body contact and the terrifying sound of origin energy explosion resounded in the entire arena almost at the same time. The expected defeat did not happen, but a scene that stunned everyone appeared. This, No way, F***ck. A variety of exclamations erupted from the entire venue's grandstand. Countless people's faces were filled with shock, disbelief, and unimaginable. Many of them were extremely envious or extremely angry as they stood up. Bastard! In front of the arena, Hao Lianqing, who was originally sitting on the contestant's seat, was instantly enraged. He stood up with a flushed face. It was certain that if this was not a competition, as Hao Lianwu's fiancé, he would definitely rush up and hack Chen Hao into pieces to vent the hatred in his heart. Because, what Chen Hao was doing now was something that he, Hao Lianqing, had always wanted to do but could not do. Lock. Chen Hao endured Hao Lianwu's violent origin energy explosion. It was only a short moment of contact, but blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Even the clothes on his body were torn in many places by the origin energy explosion. However, Chen Hao clenched his teeth. There was only one obsession in his heart. Luck. His body was like a snake coiling around Hao Lianwu's graceful body. His hands were locked around hers, and his legs were wrapped around hers. No matter how much Hao Lianwu frantically circulated her essence force, he was like a dog's skin plaster, unable to be shaken off. Hao Lianwu was a young girl. Although the clan head had appointed the engagement, she and Hao Lianyi had never held each other's hands, not to mention being entangled together in such a shameful way. Just like that, her pure body was possessed and sullied by Chen Hao. Moreover, it was in front of the major forces of the Cloud State and tens of thousands of spectators. Hao Lianwu was both embarrassed and angry. Her beautiful little face was already red, and her clear eyes were even redder. Her mind seemed to have stopped working, and there was only one thought in her mind. Get rid of him, kill him, cut him into pieces. First update. Thank you to my 11 friends, Passionate Love Nanmingzi XX, Meng EXX, Feng Bai MOUA, Chen Yu, Chuan Liang Wuzi, Whatcower, Ninth Dusk, Fish That Can't Really Swim, Book Friend 1111081433026005, and especially those who support Dark Mountain with their gifts every day. Thank you very much for giving Dark Mountain such a great motivation. My new book really needs your encouragement and support. Dark Mountain is a full-time writer, and I rely on this to make a living. Whether the results are good or bad will have a great impact on Dark Mountain. That's why, my friends who are reading Proud Heaven, even if it's just during the free period for the public to access the starting point, click on the chapters, and cast a free recommendation vote. It's all showing your support for Dark Mountain. This is also the source of motivation for Dark Mountain to write. Thank you everyone. Chapter 50. The dignified 8th grade martial master Hao Lianwuzi's heart was in a mess. The only thing she knew was to violently release her origin energy and attack randomly. Chen Hao threw out a hand and wrapped it around Hao Lian's body. He threw out a leg and quickly wrapped it around Hao Lian's body again. The highest level of the golden snake coiling hand, lock, was displayed by Chen Hao to the fullest. He became a real dog skin plaster and stuck tightly to Hao Lian's body. However, even so, the woman who was embarrassed and angry still exploded with a terrifying strength, causing Chen Hao to use all his strength. Chen Hao could clearly feel that the injuries on his body were getting more and more serious. Even his internal organs were severely shaken, but he had to persevere. Persevere. Pa. Everyone stared blankly at the two people entangled together. At first, they were shocked by Chen Hao's shameless and strange defense method, but now they were shocked by Chen Hao's use of a technique that they had never heard of before. Everyone couldn't help but think, if they were locked by Chen Hao like this, what would they do? No one knew the answer. Because no one had a solution, Xiao Mei, who was in the stands, was blushing and her delicate body was trembling. It was only at this moment that Xiao Mei finally understood what Chen Hao meant when he said something like fan club, and what method should I use? And so on. He also finally understood what kind of method Chen Hao had used to make him use the strength of a 9th-grade martial master, and after fighting for an entire day, he had been beaten black and blue by him. In the end, he had said, I can only use that method. She also finally understood why when she asked him to use that method to fight with her, he wouldn't do it no matter what. Everything was like this. However, you are a woman, so please don't mind. On the stage, there are no men or women, only opponents. Looking at Chen Hao, whose mouth was full of blood but whose eyes were firm and whose lips were tightly clenched, and the scene of Hao Lian and Wu Zi struggling crazily and enduring attacks again and again, many people recalled the words Chen Hao had said before the battle began. He had taken advantage of Hao Lian Wu Zi, and stuck close to her delicate body that countless young men dreamed of. However, there wasn't the slightest trace of wretchedness in his eyes. There was only locking onto his opponent. Everyone could imagine what kind of shocking destructive power Hao Lian Wu Zi's violent essence force had, and Chen Hao had withstood it all. For Chen Hao and Hao Lian, a few minutes felt like a century. As time passed, the attacks of Hao Lian Wu Zi, who was struggling madly with her origin energy, became weaker and weaker. Obviously, her origin energy was about to be exhausted. Similarly, Chen Hao, who had activated all his origin energy to protect his body and increase his strength to lock Hao Lian and Wu Zi, was also on the verge of collapse. No, I can't lose. I can't, I want to kill him, kill him, kill him. Hao Lian Wu Zi's crimson-red eyes gradually regained clarity as her origin energy was exhausted. Tears of humiliation welled up in her eyes, and her furious voice roared in her heart. When had she, a 16-year-old girl, suffered such humiliation? Even though Chen Hao wasn't even 13 years old, his figure was already that of a young man. Moreover, being humiliated wasn't enough. Could it be that she was going to lose this battle? This was something she absolutely couldn't tolerate. The last trace of reason finally completely disappeared under the enormous pressure and humiliation of being on the verge of defeat. Hiss hiss. The trace of profound energy hidden deep within Hao Lian Wu Zi's dantian, at this moment, when she was on the verge of defeat, finally erupted without restraint. It was just a trace, but following Hao Lian Wu Zi's activation, the originally gentle energy that seemed to be nourishing her dantian at all times suddenly burst out like a river bursting a dam, a mountain torrent erupting. In an instant, monstrous waves surged violently out of her dantian, as if it had transformed into a sharp sword, directly piercing towards Chen Hao, who was stuck close to her back. Body to body, dantian to dantian. Hao Lian Wu Zi knew that success or failure depended on this one move. If she succeeded, Chen Hao's dantian would rupture and his cultivation would be crippled. At that time, she would be able to easily break free from Chen Hao's entanglement and immediately kill him, ruthlessly kill him, disregarding the rules, killing him even if he admitted defeat, killing anyone who tried to stop her. Only in this way could she protect her secret, a secret that no one knew about. Because the two of them were so close to each other, no one saw Hao Lian Wu Zi releasing this energy. Everyone only saw the two's movements becoming smaller and smaller, but the city lord Li Ran, who was sitting in the middle of the platform, slightly narrowed his eyes. At that moment, the air in front of his eyes was like water ripples, slightly twisting. Boom, boom, boom. Chen Hao and Hao Lian Wu Zi were the same. They were already at the point of exhaustion, but he knew that at least they would not lose this battle, because Hao Lian Wu Zi's struggle was also becoming weaker and weaker. As long as they could hold on for a little longer, everything should be over, but, at this moment, Chen Hao's sharp senses suddenly sensed that the mysterious energy on Hao Lian Wu Zi's body, which was able to trigger an electric arc between the two of them, suddenly became countless times stronger. Before Chen Hao could react, a piercing pain came from his dantian. In just an instant, that energy seemed to have turned into a raging sea in his dantian, violently slamming against the surrounding dantian walls. Hiss! 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 Chen Hao felt as if he had swallowed countless high-grade elixirs at once, almost bursting his dantian in an instant. Instantly, Chen Hao felt an unprecedented sense of danger. At this moment of life and death, Chen Hao did not have time to think, and did not have time to think. The mysterious ice chi hidden in his body exploded in his dantian with a boom. An extremely cold aura instantly filled his entire dantian, and the raging waves froze in an instant, as if they had condensed into solid ice. At this moment, Hao Lian Wuzi, whose mind and energy were connected as one, suddenly widened her eyes in horror. At the moment when the entire sea was about to condense into solid ice, she suddenly retracted back into Hao Lian Wuzi's dantian as fast as lightning. Mysterious ice chi. Hao Lian Wuzi's final trump card was so easily defeated by Chen Hao. At the same time, Hao Lian Wuzi's heart was also defeated. A sense of despair surfaced in her heart. With only a trace of strength left, she stopped struggling, and sadly closed her beautiful eyes. 2 lines of sparkling tears flowed down her beautiful face. She had lost. The one who had lost was not only the competition, but also herself. She had lost completely. Keep a secret or kill me. Hao Lian Wuzi, who had already been pinned down by Chen Hao, closed her eyes tightly. Her beautiful face suddenly twisted slightly, and she turned to Chen Hao's ear. Using a determined voice, she said faintly. Chen Hao, who had exposed the profound Bing Qi, was in a state of mind that was violently fluctuating. He was very clear that if Hao Lian Wuzi did not die, he would be a great threat to him, and it might even be a fatal threat. On this point, old Xiao and Xiao Ding had cautiously reminded him. But the sparkling tears on Hao Lian Wuzi's beautiful face, the look of despair, and the words she suddenly said, made Chen Hao frown slightly. After being stunned for a short while, Chen Hao, who was also on the verge of collapse, made a decision. His body loosened, and he rolled to one side from Hao Lian Wuzi's body. It was the word "keep a secret" that made Chen Hao, who was hesitating, make a decision for Chen Hao. Chen Hao was very clear that even in the situation where the two of them were close together, there was not much hope of using the mysterious ice chi to kill Hao Lian Wuzi. Because the mysterious ice chi in his dantian could destroy Hao Lian Wuzi's energy. It should be the water attribute energy of the 5 elements. But it did not mean that when he attacked Hao Lian Wuzi's dantian, he would have the upper hand. And even if he could succeed, this was obviously a battle to see who could last until the end. How could anyone die? He was only locked. If he died, it would be him dying under Hao Lian Wuzi's struggle. He could not explain it, and there was no reason. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, Chen Hao used this kind of wretched battle method. In the end, it was blasphemous first, and he used Hao Lian Wuzi's virgin identity. Otherwise, if it was any other wind person with the same cultivation, how could they lose their cool and fall into madness? Then the one who lost or died in the end would be him, even if the current Chen Hao's heart was like a boulder and ice. He still more or less felt a little guilty towards Hao Lian Wuzi. Especially when he saw Hao Lian Wuzi's expression of despair and tears, clap clap clap. At this time, in the quiet martial arts arena, crisp clapping sounds came from the rostrum. City Lord Li Ran, who was sitting on the rostrum, actually had a faint kind smile on his face. He stared at the 2 people who seemed to have exhausted all their strength, and took the lead to clap his hands, saying, not bad, the 2 of you are very good. How about this round be considered a draw? Of course, if the 2 of you still have the strength to fight, you can continue. The matter should have been the referee, but as the chairman of the arbitration group, Li Ran actually directly spoke. The expression on his face was obviously extremely admiring of Chen Hao and Hao Lian Wuzi. City Lord. Chen Hao and Hao Lian Wuzi didn't say anything, and also didn't have the strength to speak. Especially Chen Hao, whose tensed-up nerves, after heaving a sigh of relief, instantly, his entire body felt like it was falling apart. There was no place that wasn't painful, so how would he have the strength to speak? And the despairing Hao Lian Wuzi, how would she have the mood to speak? But on the rostrum, Hao Lian family head Hao Lianlei, who was sitting beside Li Ran, stood up with a furious expression. Such shameless, how could it be considered a draw? This kid is simply the scum of the martial arts world. That's not right. Li Ran, who was always indifferent, actually smiled at this moment and directly refuted Hao Lianlei's words, saying, "This is an extremely powerful and strange defensive unique skill. Unique skills are only differentiated by grade, and there's no distinction between nobility and lowliness. Furthermore, what Xiao Xianghao said is right, on the arena, there's no male or female, only opponents. Furthermore, this kid is only 13 years old, how can we look at this battle with prejudice? This old man thinks that this will be a very exciting showdown." Second update. Seeking recommendation votes, collection. Chapter 51. That's right. I agree with the city lord. Xiao Ding said loudly at the first moment. He was very excited in his heart. Even he didn't think that the city lord Li Ran would take the initiative to speak up, and from his words, he thought highly of Chen Hao. This was something that had never happened in the Cloud State martial meet in the past. This is the most interesting defensive lost art that I've ever seen. In a short moment, the people of the arbitration team made their stance clear. Not to mention that what Li Ran said made sense. Even if it didn't make sense, it still made sense. The Hellion clan was powerful, but no matter how powerful they were, they couldn't be more powerful than the city lord residents. Although the city lord residents didn't have a superior and subordinate relationship with the various powers, the city lord residents was the true core of a region. They didn't care about the small matters, but look at the big matters. I didn't think that old Master Xiao was still hiding such a powerful lost art. It's really shocking. Patriarch Xiao, what's the name of this lost art? And what level of cultivation technique is it? A member of the arbitration team asked. This is the old ancestor's secret. Even I don't know. Xiao Ding was embarrassed in the face of everyone's questioning. He was the dignified patriarch of the Xiao clan, but he didn't even know his clan's martial arts. It was really too embarrassing. He really didn't know when the old ancestor had hidden such a strange martial art. He even seriously doubted whether this was the old ancestor's martial art, but doubts were doubts. Since Chen Hao had put this hat on old Master Zhao's head, then he had to admit it. He had to admit it even if he didn't want to. He had to admit it even if he lost face. On the main stage, after the referee saw that more than half of the members of the arbitration team had expressed their stance, he straightforwardly announced the result of the match. Hellion Wuzi tied with Chen Hao. Hellion Wuzi tightly bit her tender lips and stood up shakily. Her beautiful hair and clothes had become extremely messy from being entangled and rolled around with Chen Hao. What was most eye-catching was that on her bulging breasts, 2 clear bloody claw marks had actually appeared at some unknown time. Even Hellion Wuzi herself didn't notice it, however, when she slowly walked down the arena. Step by step, she blinded the eyes of countless admirers. Especially her fiancé, Hellion Yiqing. His small eyes emitted a fury that was close to exploding. Veins popped out on his face that was as sharp as a knife, and his teeth were clenched so hard that they made creaking sounds. He had always had a cold and unyielding character, and would never easily show his feelings on his face. However, at this time, he was unable to conceal it no matter what, nor did he want to conceal it. Hellion Wuzi was his fiancée, But, unexpectedly, Li Ran and the others could treat Chen Hao's style of fighting as a defensive ultimate art, but how could he? How could it be possible? His fiancée that he hadn't even touched, the woman that he loved deeply, was actually entangled, rolled around, and attacked by another man. Was this something that a man could tolerate? Little Wu, I will kill him for you. Helian Iching stared at Helian Wuzi's pale and expressionless face, and said word by word. At the same time, he extended his hand, wanting to support Helian Wuzi, who was on the verge of collapse. However, he was stopped by Helian Wuzi with a wave of her hand. Senior sister, take me back. Helian Wuzi's originally ethereal and beautiful voice, although still pleasant to the ears, seemed to have lost all vitality. The woman who was called senior sister looked at Helian Iching and seemed to hesitate slightly. However, she still hugged Helian Wuzi affectionately. Her figure flashed and she quickly left. No one knew what Helian Iching was feeling at this moment. However, that slightly trembling body, that flushed face, that vicious and humiliated gaze, seemed to be even more intense than when he was staring at Chen Hao. Almost at the same time, Xiao Mei, whose face was slightly red, carried Chen Hao, who was even more miserable than Helian Wuzi. Under the gazes of countless people, they quickly left the martial arts arena. The battle continued. However, perhaps because the battle between Chen Hao and Helian Wuzi was too exciting, what should have been a very exciting battle seemed to have lost its flavor in the eyes of the crowd. Xiao Jihan, who had been proud of himself for 2 days, once again had a gloomy and bitter expression on his face. He was just short of tears. What kind of world was this? After being defeated time and time again, he became stronger and stronger. Just as he was proud of himself, it happened again. Was there an end to it? Was there still justice? He had just become a grade 8 martial master, and he had become a grade 4 martial master. So what if he changed? He was just a small grade 4 martial master. However, a grade 4 martial master could actually be on par with a grade 8 martial master. Moreover, it was a grade 8 martial master that he admired and had no confidence in defeating. Chen Hao, whose mouth was full of dirty blood, closed his eyes slightly, enduring the exhaustion and piercing pain all over his body. Although the golden snake coiling hand had locked onto Helian Wuzi, the huge gap between their realms still gave Chen Hao a huge pressure. The completely crazy Helian Wuzi was like a wild horse that could not be tamed. Chen Hao used all of his methods and strength, but in the end, he could only barely suppress her and was unable to tame her. It even caused him to be exhausted and heavily injured. The faint fragrance of Xiao Mei's body that entered his nostrils, as well as that soft embrace, actually became Chen Hao's pain-relieving medicine at this moment, especially when he thought about the battle with Helian Wuzi halfway through, when he felt that he couldn't take it anymore and had no choice but to use the great art of mind confusion, the softness, charm, and gentleness that passed into his hands, and all sorts of wonderful feelings, made Chen Hao's cold and unfeeling state of mind that was as firm as a boulder, a little bit messed up, a messy feeling. It seemed very good. Junior, Just when Chen Hao was immersed in the good feeling of being messy, Xiao Mei, who was hugging him and moving forward quickly and steadily, suddenly called out. Chen Hao was immediately startled awake. The foam-like mess immediately vanished like smoke into thin air. He opened his eyes and looked at Xiao Mei's not very beautiful, but very pleasing to the eye and very charming little face. Victory, is it really that important? Do you know that you are gambling with your own life? If at the beginning you didn't entangle with me, do you know what the consequences would be? Senior has already told you that your performance is already very, very good. It has already far exceeded everyone's expectations. It's enough, it's really enough. Even if you can't enter the top 10, so what? Our Xiao family is already proud and elated, Xiao Mei said. Chen Hao stared at Xiao Mei. Xiao Mei didn't avoid his gaze at all. Xiao Mei felt that if Chen Hao didn't accept her, There would be a day when he would pay a heavy price for his personality. After the two looked at each other for a few seconds, Chen Hao grinned. His deep black eyes avoided Xiao Mei's gaze, but he narrowed them slightly and said, "Victory or defeat is not important to me. Then why are you still risking your life? Is there?" Chen Hao smiled slightly and asked back. He didn't explain too much and continued, "I know that Senior is worried about me, but as long as there is a trace of hope, I will never allow myself to fail. A martial artist should be courageous and diligent, with the will to forge ahead. If one is overly calculative and fearful, how can one challenge one's limits and surpass oneself? Doing something only when one has a 10% chance of success is meaningless. We don't have to bring shame and destruction to ourselves without any chance of success. But as long as there is a 10% chance of victory, we will fight. We will use all our strength to firmly grasp that 10% chance of victory in our hands." Chen Hao's stubborn gaze, firm voice, and especially the words that attacked one's soul left Xiao Mei speechless once again. Besides, Xiao Jihan is already an 8th grade martial master, so I don't want to give up the training before the life and death battle. Only by fighting, by surpassing one's limits and filled with danger, can I quickly improve. So I must use all my strength to fight with Helian Wuzi. Haha, although I didn't win against her, I didn't lose either. It can be considered a success. Chen Hao's blood-stained face revealed a brilliant smile and his voice softened. Xiao Mei stared blankly for a moment before curling her lips and saying, "It's all your reasoning. I really don't know where you get these great principles from. Do as you please, Senior, you're so reserved." "What's reserved?" "You're clearly convinced. Why do you have to be convinced in your heart and not in your mouth? If you show it, I'll be happy to pay. Who's convinced by you?" Xiao Mei blushed and spat. "It's fine if you don't admit it, as long as I understand. However, Senior, you can't copy what I just said because I'm different from you. You have to have at least 50% confidence. Otherwise, don't do it." "Oh? You're worried about me?" "You can say that. Other than my family, there aren't many people who can make me worry. You're very lucky to be one of them," Chen Hao said proudly with a sunny smile on his face. It was a pity that it was ruined beyond recognition by the bloodstains at the corner of his mouth and face. However, Chen Hao's mood was indeed very good at this moment. The naive youth of the past wouldn't have said such words, and the arrogant him would have disdained to say them. However, after the fusion, because of Xiao Mei's heartfelt care for him, he said them out loud. It was heartwarming but still filled with arrogance. Chen Hao knew that the current him was no longer any of his past selves. Instead, he had merged the characteristics of two people and was a brand new him. When he faced Helian Wuzi, he had a deep understanding of the previous Chen Hao wouldn't have hesitated to kill because Helian Wuzi was only competing with him. Even if Helian Wuzi wanted to use the water attribute energy of the 5 elements to shatter his Dantian, he wouldn't have any killing intent because he was the one who molested her first. If it was any other girl, they wouldn't be able to tolerate it. However, the previous Earth madman would definitely kill him. However, he hesitated and didn't kill him in the end. "Let me help you heal your injuries?" When Xiao Mei brought Chen Hao back to the Xiao family's encampment, she said to Chen Hao, "No need. I still have pills, so it won't be a problem. I'll definitely be full of energy tomorrow." "Alright then, I'll help you guard. Quickly go in and..." Chen Hao responded. His gaze suddenly looked at the empty door and said, "Chief Instructor, thank you." Xiao Mei was slightly surprised. Cough cough. Xiao Guan, who always had a cold face, awkwardly coughed twice. His figure flashed and appeared in front of the two. He looked at Chen Hao with bright eyes and said, "You're indeed born with keen sixth sense. Are you really okay?" "I'm really fine," Chen Hao said. "That's good. Alright, what's the martial art you used today called?" I don't know. You'll have to ask Elder Shao. Elder Shao only told me, but didn't tell me the name. It's not bad. But don't use it on girls in the future. A man should be open and aboveboard. Alright, you focus on healing. Xiao Mei is here. If there's anything, just call me. I'll be nearby. Xiao Guan said and quickly left. Looking at Xiao Guan's silhouette, Xiao Mei thought that it was because the head of the family and Xiao Guan valued Chen Hao. However, the moment Chen Hao turned and entered the cultivation room, he slightly narrowed his eyes. P.S. Thanks for yesterday's Chuan Wuzi, passionate love Karakama? Luo Shi. Thanks to his 13 friends, Mo Qingyi, dreaming is already dead, fish that can't really swim, harmless donkey, Hong Meng tree, tadpoles in the sea, raging fire like ice, wind blows rain, maple is not night, blue dome. Also, if you've seen it, please add it to your collection, recommend it, etc. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.